Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
I welcome all on this fourth day of CA Vichar Manch GST webinar course, 10 days course. We have very detailed and in-depth learning of basic law in last 3 days, and all the sessions been appreciated well by the participants. Today we have sessions on time of supply and on valuation. That sessions will be taken up time of supply by CA Prachi Goyal and on valuation by CA Chitresh Gupta, both eminent experts in the subjects. And we have the patronage of Sushil Verma ji, Rakesh ji, Vineet ji, Sandeep ji, PK Mittal ji, and other learned speakers and experts in the subjects. So before we open up the session to Prachi will be taking up session first. So I request Rakesh ji to initiate with his opening remark. Rakesh ji, please unmute.
Thank you, Manmohan ji.
Yeah,
welcome
sir.
Friends. So we are on the day when we'll discuss the time and value of supply, and this is very, very important under the GST because the time and value of the supply has been included in the charging section itself, 9.1 and 5.1, as we discussed earlier, that it has to be taxed at the value and time as prescribed. So here we have got section 12, section 13 and section 15. Particularly section 12 and 13 talks about the supply, time of supply, and section 15 about the value of supply. So friends, all these times of supplies are very, very important in the sense that they decide at what time we have to pay tax. It is not necessarily that I have made supply today, I am required to pay tax today itself. They have stated the time particular that when my liability to pay tax will arise. Will it be at the time of receipt of the payment? Will it be at the time of raising of the invoices? That is defined under section 12 in respect of the goods and section 13 in respect of the services. Then important section would be section 15, which decides at what value I have to pay tax. This would again be a very, very important session, and it will cover, it is not necessary because it will cover the deemed supply as well, supply without consideration as well. It will also decide that whether the tax would be levied at transaction value or some other value. At what time open market value would be the base for the purpose of taxation. So both the sessions are going to be very, very crucial. And these are the only section, if you read our COVID related relaxation, they have not relaxed chapter 4 of the GST Act, that all other provisions except chapter 4 and few other sections have been given the deferment up to 30th June, but chapter 4, which comprises the time and value of the supply, has been excluded, meaning thereby I am required to compute my liability in the manner stated in chapter 4. So I welcome both the speakers. I welcome all of you. With this, I hand over to Manmohan ji for further proceeding.
Yeah, thank you Rakesh ji. As you have said, बहुत ही important दोनों chapters हैं और बहुत कुछ issues इसमें आते हैं जब assessments के time में और demand and recovery के time में. मैं सुशील जी से request करूँगा to say few words and then we will start.
Hi, good afternoon to all of you. All of you are looking very fresh, smart, and all the women are looking very beautiful as usual. Now, if you remember section 9, I had said in my deliberations, section 9 is the best drafted section in any taxation law I know of. It talked of supply, talked of charging section value. Section 12 and 13 say when the charging taxation event will happen. That is section 12 and 13 will tell us when goods or services are deemed to have been supplied, and then you have to pay tax. That is very, very critical. Then you also have section 14. If there is a change in tax rates, what happens to time of supply? when will you pay tax? And section 15, read with section 9, in my opinion, is the essence of GST. Because section 15 tell you that for domestic goods, not imported goods, how will you compute the value of goods? Section 15 language is totally different from Central Excise Act section 4.3. I had examined this in some other matter, custom and excise. They are different provisions. So those judgments may not be relevant here in GST law. But section 15, two things are very critical which all of us should deliberate. One is the transaction value. When you have a transaction value on invoice between unrelated parties and for a consideration, like no authority can question that valuation. This is beyond their jurisdiction. But only when you have a transaction between related parties or associated enterprises, then you have valuation problem because they can influence. So section 15 explanation tells you related parties. It's a huge, huge transaction. Then like Rakesh, as usually rightly said, the free supplies issues, especially for COVID-19 issues, what happens there? What is the relevance of Schedule 1? What is the relevance of, when you give distributors some free goods, what happens? Will they be as free supplies? Will you take them discounts? Will you take a sales promotion? What stand do we take? And especially, the speaker should deliberate section 12.13 read with section 31.2 invoices, as well as section 148, where government has power to prescribe through notification certain things on time and value of supply. So friend, it's going to be a very, very absorbing day. And wherever possible, we should teach each other, because no speaker can speak on these subjects in 2 hours. It's not possible. It's a virtually impossible thing, because they're all deemed in section 15 also, and this section 12, 13, 14 also. So let's be very attentive. Manmohan, thank you for choosing these topics. And I'm sure we have 2 young people to make us learn on these issues. And we are going in for lots and lots of learning. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sushil ji. So now I request Prachi, young and dynamic. So आप शुरू करें, and I hope you would be able to conclude in 30 to 35 minutes.
Yeah.
Please, Prachi. Yeah.
A very good evening, good afternoon to all the participants who have taken out time to attend this 10 days basic webinar on GST basics. So today's topic is time of supply, and as said by Sushil Verma sir, that it is a critical and important area to discuss upon, because it identifies the time on which the liability to pay GST arises. So टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई के प्रोविजंस पढ़ने से पहले हमें ये देखना होगा कि बेसिकली टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई की नीड क्या है. व्हाई डू वी हैव टू स्टडी दिस? The co-panelist has told that it is basically a concept जहां से हमें पता लगता है कि liability कैसे arise हो रही है. इसकी इम्पोर्टेंस बेसिकली कब आती है? जब हमारी जो डिफरेंट टैक्सेबल इवेंट्स हैं वो डिफरेंट टैक्स पीरियड्स में फॉल करती हैं. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, इनवॉइस रेज होता है हमारा जनवरी मंथ में, सप्लाई होती है फरवरी मंथ में, पेमेंट होती है मार्च मंथ में. सो इट identifies, it specifies the certainty of time and fixes the liability कि किस मंथ में कौन सा पे टैक्स पे होना है. Governing sections, CGST Act and SGST Acts. In respect of goods, we have section 12. In respect of services, we have section 13. And section 14 is a section which is pertaining to the time of supply and what rate will be applicable in case there is a change in rate. Talking about IGST chargeability, section 20 of the IGST Act carries the provisions as laid down in CGST Act. So starting first of all with the time of supply of goods, which is section 12. इसमें क्या है, अभी उससे पहले हम एक स्ट्रक्चर डिफाइन कर लेते हैं कि सेक्शन 12 और 13 में डिफरेंस क्या है और क्या क्या कैटेगरीज डिवाइड किया गया है. Section 12 is for goods and Section 13 is for services, as I told earlier. जो liability to pay taxes होती है वो हमारे 12(1) और 13 subsection 1 में डिफाइन की गई है. बाकी जो categories of supplies हैं वो हमारे 5 मेजर कैटेगरीज में डिफाइन की हैं, which is forward charge, reverse charge, supply of vouchers, रेजिडरी केसेस जहाँ पे किसी भी केस में हम आइडेंटिफाई नहीं कर पा रहे टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई क्या है, उस केस में हम 12(5) एंड 13(5) को रिस्पेक्टिवली इंटरप्रेट करेंगे, एंड एनी स्पेशल चार्जेस लाइक इंटरेस्ट, फीस एक्सेट्रा विच विल बी कवर्ड इन 12(6) एंड 13(6). अब टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई पढ़ने से पहले एक मेरे को ये दिया गया था कि टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई करना है, बट उसको करने से पहले वी हैव टू गो थ्रू सेक्शन 31, जिसके लिए, क्योंकि सेक्शन 31 के अराउंड ही हमारा सारा टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई रिवॉल्व करता है. व्हाट इज सेक्शन 31? सेक्शन 31 इज टाइम लिमिट फॉर इशुएंस ऑफ टैक्स इनवॉइसेस. उसमें बेसिकली हमें बताया गया है कि गुड्स और सर्विसेज के केस में व्हाट इज द मैक्सिमम टाइम लिमिट जिसमें हमें इनवॉइस इशू कर देना है. पहले हम 31 के जितने भी सबसेक्शंस रिलेटेड टू गुड्स हैं वो देखेंगे, फिर देन विल सी द टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई ऑफ गुड्स. Later on, we will see the remaining subsections of 31, which will be in relation to services, and subsequently we will be seeing the time of supply of services. So, time limit for issuing tax invoices, basically we have 3 different subsections of section 31. Supplier of goods, that is normal supply of goods. Section 31 subsection 4, which deals with continuous supply of goods, and section 31 subsection 7, which deals with goods sent on approval basis. इसमें 3 cases जैसे हम identify कर लें. Case 1 जहाँ section 31(1) है, which says कि there is a person who comes to a supplier and purchases some goods and takes the tax invoice and pays the amount with GST and leaves the place. 31(4) is continuous supply of goods. अब in order to categorize a supply in continuous supply of goods, this particular definition has been given in section 2 for continuous supply of goods, and which says that there must be a recurrent supply and the payment should be periodical. अगर ये दोनों चीजें नहीं हुई तो वो continuous supply of goods में fall नहीं करेगी. गुड सेंट ऑन अप्रूवल बेसिस में एक केस आ जाता है कि आई गो टू अ पर्टिकुलर सप्लायर, आई आस्क देम टू गिव मी सम गुड्स ऑन अप्रूवल बेसिस फॉर अ टेम्परेरी पीरियड ऑफ टाइम, एंड इफ दिस सूट मी देन आई परचेज दोज पर्टिकुलर गुड्स. तो नाउ कमिंग फॉरवर्ड कि हम इन तीनों अलग अलग केसेस में हमारा क्या क्या टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई रहेगा. फर्स्ट इज 31(1), which says what will be the time of supply, time of issuance of tax invoice in case of supply of goods. This is further divided into 2 categories. One involves movement of goods, and the other involves where there is no movement of goods. No movement of goods, we could specifically say supply of any immovable property. Where case 1 falls, जहाँ पे movement of goods होनी है, this movement can be either by the supplier himself or by the recipient. तो tax invoice issue करने की last date होगी हमारी removal of goods. That is, whenever the custody of the goods is being out from the supplier's hand and is handed over either to the recipient or to the transporter, or to any agent of either supplier or recipient. मतलब जैसे ही हमारा गुड्स की कस्टडी सप्लायर के हाथ से निकल जाती है, रिमूवल ऑफ गुड्स तब मान लिया जाता है. सो हियर ये है कि जिस दिन हमारा निकला, रिमूवल हुआ गुड्स का, उस दिन हमारा लास्ट डेट ऑफ टैक्स इनवॉइस हो जाएगा. एंड इन केस देयर इज नो मूवमेंट ऑफ गुड्स, जैसे कि I told, in for example in case of immovable property, then delivery of goods or making availability of the particular good to the recipient shall be the date on which the tax invoice has to be issued. Next is section 31 subsection 4, which says what will be the time of issuance of invoice in case of continuous supply of goods. फर्स्ट केस सेज जहां पे हमारी सक्सेसिव स्टेटमेंट्स रिसीव होनी है, वहां पे जब हमारी सक्सेसिव स्टेटमेंट्स इशू होंगी वो हमारी टाइम ऑफ इशुएंस ऑफ टैक्स इनवॉइस हो जाएगी. या फिर इन केस देयर इज सक्सेसिव पेमेंट्स टू बी रिसीव्ड बाय द सप्लायर इन केस ऑफ कंटिन्यूअस सप्लाई ऑफ गुड्स, तो whatever date is the payment being received by the supplier shall be the last date for issuance of invoice. Coming on to the next third case, which is goods sent on approval basis. तो इसमें ये होगा कि जो भी अगर हमारा अप्रूवल आ जाता है विद इन 6 months फ्रॉम द डेट ऑफ रिमूवल ऑफ गुड्स, तो दैट विल बी द डेट ऑफ इशुएंस ऑफ टैक्स इनवॉइस, एंड इन केस वी डू नॉट रिसीव एनी कंफर्मेशन फ्रॉम द रेसिपिएंट, जो हमारे गुड्स ऑन अप्रूवल बेसिस लेकर गया था, उससे हमारे पास कोई कंफर्मेशन नहीं आती है विद इन 6 months, देन दैट विल बी द डे इमीडिएटली फॉलोइंग द 6 months expiry period shall be the last date of issuance of tax invoice. So coming forward, कि अब हमने ये देख लिया है कि लास्ट डेट ऑफ टैक्स इनवॉइस क्या होनी है. अब उसके बाद हम देखेंगे कि गुड्स के केस में हमारा फॉरवर्ड चार्ज, गुड्स के केस में हमारा टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई क्या रहना है. उसके लिए एज आई टोल्ड अर्लियर कि 5 डिफरेंट कैटेगरीज हैं, एक फॉरवर्ड चार्ज, रिवर्स चार्ज एंड वाउचर्स एंड रेजिडरी केसेस. द फर्स्ट इज फॉरवर्ड चार्ज मैकेनिज्म व्हिच इज डिफाइंड अंडर सेक्शन 12 सबसेक्शन 2, which says the time of supply for normal supply of goods shall be the earliest of the following dates. First, the date of issue of invoice, जिस दिन हमारा invoice issue हुआ है. Second, the last date of issuance of invoice, which is required under section 31. Initially, जो CGST Act थी, that said that the last date of issuance of invoice under subsection 1 of section 31. तो जो हमारा नॉर्मल सप्लाई ऑफ गुड्स होता था, सिर्फ उसी में वही क्लॉज कवर होता था. बट लेटर ऑन वाया सीजीएसटी अमेंडमेंट एक्ट ये पर्टिकुलर क्लॉज चेंज किया गया, एंड इट वाज मेंशन दैट whatever invoice is being referred to in section 31, जिसकी भी टाइम लिमिट सेक्शन 31 में डिफाइन की गई है इन रिस्पेक्ट ऑफ गुड्स, उसकी लास्ट डेट इनवॉइस की यहाँ पे हम देखेंगे as a criteria. And the third is date of receipt of payment by the supplier. पहले तो हमारा ये लास्ट डेट ऑफ इशुएंस ऑफ इनवॉइस अंडर सेक्शन 31 जो क्लॉज है, ये आया क्यों? ये इसके पीछे एक लॉजिक था that let's suppose there is a supplier who has made a supply in month of January, but the payment has been received by him in the month of March. तो अगर वो ये क्लॉज नहीं होता, 31 वाला क्लॉज नहीं होता, तो इन दैट केस क्या होता कि सप्लायर कहता कि आई विल नॉट इशू द इनवॉइस बिकॉज if once I issue the invoice, my time of supply, my liability to pay taxes shall arise in the month of January itself, and I'll have to pay the GST from my own pocket. क्योंकि पेमेंट तो उसको मार्च में आई है, जनवरी में उसने इनवॉइस रेज कर दिया, तो उसका टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई बन गया जनवरी मंथ में, जिसकी पेमेंट उसको फरवरी में करनी पड़ेगी. अब पेमेंट उसको मार्च में आ रही है रेसिपिएंट से, तो उस वजह से उसको अपनी पॉकेट से पे करना पड़ रहा है. तो इसको एस्केप करने के लिए सप्लायर्स का हो सकता था कि दे वोंट हैव इशूड एनी इनवॉइस. उन्होंने ये करना होगा कि इनवॉइस भी हम मार्च में ही इशू करें whenever we are receiving the payment. So there would be a loss to government of income. तो उसको कॉप करने के लिए हमारा ये वाला क्लॉज ऐड किया गया कि अगर आपने इनवॉइस इशू नहीं किया, तो जो भी हमारी लास्ट डेट ऑफ इशुएंस ऑफ इनवॉइस रहेगी, दैट विल बी डीम्ड टू बी आवर टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई. अब इसमें एक चीज है कि ये जो थर्ड कंडीशन है, डेट ऑफ रिसीट ऑफ पेमेंट बाय द सप्लायर, दैट स्टैंड्स टू बी इनवैलिड. व्हाई? Because of virtue of notification 66/2017, which says that no advances received in respect of goods, supply of goods shall be taxable. ये बिट्स एंड पीसेस में आया था. स्टार्टिंग में जो हमारा एक्ट था वो कहता था कि जितने भी एडवांसेस हमारे पास रिसीव हुए हैं, आइदर इन रिस्पेक्ट ऑफ सप्लाई ऑफ गुड्स और इन रिस्पेक्ट ऑफ सप्लाई ऑफ सर्विसेज, शैल बी टैक्सेबल एज एंड व्हेन रिसीव्ड. बट बिट्स एंड पीसेस में गुड्स के रिस्पेक्ट में सप्लाईज जो थी, उनका हमारा एडवांसेस पे जीएसटी खत्म होता गया, एंड वाया नोटिफिकेशन 66/2017 ये टोटली वैनिश हो चुका था. So let us consider this. 12(2) में बेसिकली फिर ये हुआ we have to just see two dates. One is date of issuance of invoice, जिस दिन हमारा invoice issue हुआ, and second कि हमारा last date invoice issue करने का क्या है as per section 31. इसके लिए हमने दो केसेस ड्राफ्ट करे. फर्स्ट केस इज अ सिंपल वन कि रिमूवल ऑफ गुड्स हुआ हमारा लेट्स सपोज 2 मार्च को, इनवॉइस हमने इशू कर दिया था 1 मार्च को. पेमेंट इज इररेलेवेंट सो विल अवॉइड इट. तो इस केस में हमारा टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई क्या रहेगा? Time of supply would be 1st of March because the invoice has been issued well within the time of issuance which is prescribed under section 31. Similar second case आता है, इसमें कहता है कि रिमूवल हुआ 10th मार्च को, इनवॉइस रेज हुआ 15th मार्च को. This particular invoice has been raised after the last date of issuance which is being prescribed under section 31 और पेमेंट्स जो है वो एडवांस में आ गई हैं. बेयर लॉ की रीडिंग से जो इनिशियल लॉ था उसके हिसाब से 5th March would have been time of supply, but due to notification 66/2017 पेमेंट्स की डेट्स को हम इग्नोर करके चलेंगे. सेक्शन 31 would be an overriding section over here, मतलब उसकी वजह से हमारा डेट ऑफ टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई विल बी 10th March because the last date of issuance of invoice will be 10th March. इसमें एक क्लॉज और था, स्मॉल एडवांसेस का क्लॉज है, जो कहता है कि इफ देयर इज एनी advance received up to an amount of 1,000 rupees, then at the option of the supplier, the date of the time of supply shall be the date of invoice for such excess amount received. इसमें बेसिकली क्या है, जैसे एक केस स्टडी एग्जांपल के साथ समझते हैं. दैट टुडे आई मेड अ सप्लाई फॉर लेट्स सपोज 19,500 रुपीज, बट द रेसिपिएंट पेज मी 20,000 रुपीज कि 500 रुपीज आप नेक्स्ट सप्लाई में एडजस्ट कर लेना. सो फॉर 19,500 रुपीज टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई हम आज ही डिटरमाइन कर लेंगे. जो भी हमारा इनवॉइस की डेट होगी या लास्ट डेट ऑफ इनवॉइस होगी उसके हिसाब से हम 90,500 का आज टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई डिटरमाइन कर लेंगे. बाकी जो 500 रुपीज का अमाउंट होगा दैट इज माई ऑप्शन, बीइंग द सप्लायर दैट इज माई ऑप्शन कि मैं उसको आज ही टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई ट्रीट करके उस पर आज ही टैक्स लाइबिलिटी पे कर दूं, और मैं नेक्स्ट टाइम जब उसको अगली बारी जब उसको कोई सप्लाई करूं उसमें उस 500 को एडजस्ट करके तब मैं टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई उस हिसाब से उस पे 500 रुपीज पर जीएसटी पे करूं. सो दिस इज स्मॉल एडवांसेस. नेक्स्ट इज 12(3) which deals with time of supply of goods under RCM. तो RCM में जो भी 9394 दोनों केसेस में जितने भी हमारे फॉल करेंगे वो सब होंगे. इसमें टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई स्पेसिफिकली डिफाइंड है which is earliest of the following dates. The first is receipt of goods. Second is the date of payment by the recipient. अब डेट ऑफ पेमेंट बाय द रेसिपिएंट क्या होगी? एंट्री इन बुक्स ऑफ अकाउंट्स बाय द रेसिपिएंट एंड डेबिट इन बैंक अकाउंट ऑफ द रेसिपिएंट. क्योंकि आरसीएम पूरा रेसिपिएंट के अराउंड रिवॉल्व करता है तो हमें उसी रेसिपिएंट की बुक्स और बैंक अकाउंट्स को चेक करना पड़ेगा, और गुड्स भी जब वो रिसीव कर रहा है तो उसके हिसाब से चलना पड़ेगा. और अगर गुड्स रिसीव नहीं हो रहे, पेमेंट में नहीं हो रही या हमें असर्टेनेबल नहीं है, सो the time of supply would be the day immediately following the 30 days from the removal of goods from the date of invoice of the supplier. So coming on to this, अब for example कि supplier ने goods case supplier ने एक invoice issue किया अपना 1st March को, goods receive हुए 5th April को, बुक्स ऑफ अकाउंट्स में एंट्री करी उसने 10th April एंड डेबिट इन बैंक अकाउंट हुआ 7th April. इस केस में व्हाट विल बी द टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई वेयर द गुड्स आर लायबल टू रिवर्स चार्ज मैकेनिज्म. नाउ सिंस the receipt of goods is not within 30 days from the date of invoice issued by the supplier, तो हमारा जो टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई बनेगा दैट विल बी 1st April which is the 31st date from the day of issue of invoice of the supplier. तो सप्लायर जब भी अपना इनवॉइस इशू कर रहा है उसके 30 दिन के अंदर अंदर अगर पेमेंट नहीं होती है, गुड्स रिसीव नहीं होते, सो वील हैव टू deem that 31st day will be the time of supply for reverse charge mechanism. Next, coming on to time of supply in case of vouchers, section 12 subsection 4. उसको समझने से पहले थोड़ा सा डेफिनेशन ऑफ वाउचर्स देखने पड़ेंगे, which is defined under section 2 subsection 118. Voucher is basically an instrument which can be treated as a consideration in whole or part consideration for any supply, जहाँ पे या तो हमारा गुड्स या सर्विसेज आइडेंटिफाइड हो या फिर हमारा सप्लायर जो पोटेंशियल सप्लायर्स हैं वो आइडेंटिफाइड हो या इंडिकेटेड हो ऑन द वाउचर इटसेल्फ. सो इसको समझने के लिए हमारे पास 2 टाइप्स ऑफ वाउचर्स होते हैं. वन इज वेयर the goods are identified, or second is where the supplier is identified. फर्स्ट केस जहाँ पे गुड्स या सर्विसेज आर आइडेंटिफाइड, उसमें क्या होता है, फॉर एग्जाम्पल अ कंपनी इशूज सम वाउचर्स कि देयर इज अ वाउचर, इफ यू टेक दिस यू विल गेट अ डिस्काउंट ऑफ 2 रुपीज ऑन परचेज ऑफ अ पर्टिकुलर आइटम, लेट्स से एक टाइटन की वॉच पे. तो हमें पता है इसमें गुड्स स्पेसिफाइड है. अगर एक कंपनी इशू करती है एक वाउचर जिसमें वो कहती है कि यू विल गेट any services, for example car wash services for 8,000 worth rupees 8,000 for free, so in that case our vouchers are identifiable vouchers. एक सेकंड टाइप ऑफ वाउचर होते हैं विच इज अनआइडेंटिफिएबल, जहाँ पे हमारे पास एक तरीके से सप्लायर आइडेंटिफाइड है जहाँ कहाँ पे आप जाके रिडीम कर सकते हैं, बट वी डोंट नो द एक्चुअल सप्लाई कि क्या सप्लाई होने वाली है बाय यूजिंग दैट पर्टिकुलर वाउचर. फॉर एग्जाम्पल इफ वी गिफ्ट Amazon voucher to anyone, or anyone supplies this Amazon voucher which is to be used from the Amazon portal, जिसका हमें नहीं पता कि जो भी रेसिपिएंट ऑफ दैट वाउचर है वो क्या लेगा. He can take an item which is taxable at 5%, he can take an item which is taxable at 18% or anything. So we don't know what exactly will be the use of that particular voucher. हमें बस ये पता है कि वो पोर्टल पे जाके, Amazon के पोर्टल पे जाके यूज किया जाएगा. What will be the time of supply in case of these vouchers? First is, अगर हमारे पास वाउचर आइडेंटिफिएबल है, जो हमारा केस 1 था जहाँ पे हमारा वाउचर वाज यूज्ड ओनली फॉर परचेज ऑफ टाइटन वॉच, तो इन दैट केस टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई विल बी द डेट ऑफ इशूएंस ऑफ वाउचर. आज हमने वाउचर इशू किया, आज ही हमारा टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई हो जाएगा, क्योंकि हमें पता है कि जब भी यूजर यूज कर. सेकेंड केस, इन ऑल अदर केसेस जहां पे हमें ये नहीं पता कि वाउचर किस लिए यूज किया जाएगा, व्हाट विल बी द एग्जैक्ट पर्पस ऑफ यूजिंग दैट पर्टिकुलर वाउचर, इन दैट केस द टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई विल बी द डेट ऑफ रिडेम्पशन. तो डेट ऑफ रिडेम्पशन में होगा कि आपका जब भी वाउचर रिडीम किया जाएगा तभी हमारा अनआइडेंटिफिएबल वाउचर्स को टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई होगा. नेक्स्ट इज रेजिडुअरी केसेस 12 सबसेक्शन 5, जहां पे हमें 12, 2, 3, 4 में कहीं पे भी आइडेंटिफाई नहीं हो पाया कि टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई क्या फॉल करेगा. वहां पे हमें देखना, उस पर्टिकुलर केस के लिए हमें 12.5 पे जाना पड़ेगा, which says that if a particular periodic return is being filed, then the date of return filing shall be the time of supply. अगर टैक्स पेमेंट हो रही है तो हम टैक्स पेमेंट की डेट को टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई मानेंगे. दिस बेसिकली कैन बी सेड कि एक जहाँ पे भी डिपार्टमेंट इंटरवेंशन हो रही है वहां के लिए एक एक क्लॉज एक सबसेक्शन डाला है कि जहाँ जीएसटी डिपार्टमेंट की वजह से हमारा कुछ भी लाइबिलिटी क्रिएट हो रही है, तो व्हेनेवर वी आर रिपोर्टिंग दैट लाइबिलिटी इन आवर पर्टिकुलर रिटर्न, तो हम उसका टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई उस रिटर्न के हिसाब से मान लेंगे या फिर टैक्स पेमेंट को हम टैक्स पेमेंट की डेट से मान लेंगे. Next is time of supply in case of special charges, which is prescribed under section 12 subsection 6. This basically deals with any type of interest, late fee, penalty, or any amount which has been paid due to delayed payment of any consideration. अब इसमें क्या कहता है कि अगर हमने कोई भी इंटरेस्ट, लेट फी या पेनल्टी रिसीव करी है तो दैट विल बी लायबल टू जीएसटी ऑन एक्चुअल रिसीट बेसिस. जैसे पहले हमारे सर्विस टैक्स में होता था रिसीट बेसिस पे होता था, वैसे ही हमारा इंटरेस्ट, लेट फी, पेनल्टीज विल बी लायबल टू जीएसटी ऑन एक्चुअल रिसीट बेसिस. सो इसमें एक क्वेश्चन है कि इन इज दिस पर्टिकुलर ये जो हमारा सेक्शन है 12(6), इसमें इंटरेस्ट, लेट फी, पेनल्टी तो उन्होंने प्रिस्क्राइब कर दी है. इंटरेस्ट, लेट फी, पेनल्टी अगर ना हो, कोई और अमाउंट से पेमेंट हो रही हो, वेदर दैट पर्टिकुलर पेमेंट विल बी लायबल टू जीएसटी और नॉट. द आंसर इज यस. कुछ भी तरीके की पेमेंट हो, बट दैट पर्टिकुलर पेमेंट शुड बी ओनली इन रिस्पेक्ट ऑफ डिलेड पेमेंट ऑफ कंसिडरेशन. अगर डिलेड पेमेंट ऑफ कंसिडरेशन के नेचर में नहीं है तो दैट विल नॉट बी लायबल टू जीएसटी अंडर 12(6). उसकी टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई हम 12(6) में नहीं निकालेंगे, रिस्पेक्टिव सेक्शंस में निकालेंगे. इसको एक एग्जांपल के साथ देख लेते हैं. लेट्स सपोज गुड्स वर्थ ₹2 लाख वर सप्लाइड इन द मंथ ऑफ मार्च, जिसमें सप्लायर ने बोला था कि हम आपको 2 मंथ्स का क्रेडिट पीरियड देते हैं, अप्रैल एंड मई. In case you fail to make payments by 31st May, then you are liable to pay an interest of at the rate 1% or late fee of ₹50 per day. तो in this case, in this particular case, जो 2 लाख का हमने सामान जो सप्लाई करी थी, that will be उसका जो टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई होगा that will be computed according to section 12 subsection 2 or 3, whichever is the case. And in respect of this interest amount, interest या late fees जो हमारा अराइज हुआ है, लाइबिलिटी जो हमारी अराइज हुई है ड्यू टू डिलेड पेमेंट ऑफ कंसिडरेशन, क्योंकि रेसिपिएंट ने मई तक पेमेंट नहीं करी. इस केस में हमारी डिलेड पेमेंट की हमारी जो भी लाइबिलिटी रहेगी, उसकी टैक्सेबिलिटी विल अराइज एज एंड व्हेन दैट पर्टिकुलर. So with this we are done with the time of supply of goods, that is section 12, जिसमें हमने देखा 12(2) में फॉरवर्ड चार्ज मैकेनिज्म, व्हाट इज द टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई इन रिस्पेक्ट ऑफ फॉरवर्ड चार्ज मैकेनिज्म, रिवर्स चार्ज, वाउचर्स एंड आपका रेजिडरी केसेस एंड स्पेशल इंटरेस्ट, स्पेशल चार्जेस. नेक्स्ट इज टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई ऑफ सर्विसेज. अब टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई ऑफ गुड्स करने से पहले वी डिड द टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई फॉर टाइम ऑफ इशुएंस ऑफ इनवॉइस. अब ऐसे ही सर्विसेज का टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई असर्टेन करने से पहले विल बी गोइंग थ्रू द टाइम लिमिट फॉर इशुएंस ऑफ टैक्स इनवॉइस. इसके लिए वी हैव टू सबसेक्शंस. वन इज सबसेक्शन 31 सेक्शन 31 सबसेक्शन 2 व्हिच सेज सप्लाई ऑफ टैक्सेबल सर्विसेज, जो कहता है, एक्ट कहता है कि हमारा जो इनवॉइस इशू हो जाना चाहिए, जो इनवॉइस है दैट शुड बी इशूड before or after provision of taxable services. Before or after provision of taxable services, invoice should be issued, but within the prescribed time period. Now that time period has been prescribed in the Rule 47 of the CGST Act, which says 30 days from the date of provision of service हमारा invoice issue हो जाना चाहिए. But in case of insurers and bankers, this 30 days has been extended to 45 days. So basically, जो हमारा टैक्सेबल सर्विसेज के लिए टैक्स इनवॉइस है, दैट मस्ट बी इशूड within 30 days from the date of provision of service and 45 days in case of bankers and insurers. Second section is 31 subsection 5, which is continuous supply of services. इसको देखने से पहले what is the concept of continuous supply of services? This is again defined in section 2, which mainly has three conditions to be satisfied to satisfy that a particular supply is falling under the category of continuous supply of services or not. First and second condition are same as that of continuous supply of goods, which is that the supply should be on the recurrent basis, payment should be periodically. इस services में एक third condition और add हो जाती है that the period of this services provision should be more than 3 months. 3 months वाला concept हमारे पास goods में नहीं था. अगर 3 months से ज्यादा है tenure of that particular provision of service, तभी वो हमारा continuous supply of services में fall करेगा. What is the last date of issuing tax invoice in case of continuous supply of services? फर्स्ट इज जहां पे हमारा ड्यू डेट ऑफ पेमेंट असर्टेनेबल है, हमने एक एग्रीमेंट ड्राफ्ट किया, रेसिपिएंट और सप्लायर ने एग्रीमेंट ड्राफ्ट किया एंड दैट पर्टिकुलर एग्रीमेंट में हमारा डिफाइंड है कि यू हैव टू मेक द पेमेंट बाय 7th ऑफ द फॉलोइंग मंथ. सो द इनवॉइस मस्ट बी इशूड ऑन और बिफोर द 7th ऑफ दैट पर्टिकुलर मंथ. जहां पे हमारा एग्रीमेंट में पेमेंट डेट इज नॉट आइडेंटिफाइड, वहां पे हमारा जो इशू इनवॉइस की डेट होगी दैट शुड बी ऑन और बिफोर द रिसीट ऑफ पेमेंट. जिस दिन हमारी पेमेंट रिसीव हुई, मैक्सिमम टिल दैट डेट द इनवॉइस मस्ट बी इशूड. एंड देयर आर सर्टेन एग्रीमेंट्स जहां पे पेमेंट इज लिंक्ड टू कंप्लीशन ऑफ इवेंट्स, लाइक 25% कंप्लीट हो गया of a particular task, 25% of a particular task is completed, तो पेमेंट 25% आ जाएगी. फिर 50% होने के बाद पेमेंट 40% हो जानी चाहिए. ऐसे अगर कुछ लिंक है तो whenever that particular condition of completion of event is fulfilled, the invoice must be issued before that or at the time that particular condition is fulfilled. So next is टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई. ये हमारा जो था टाइम ऑफ इशुएंस ऑफ इनवॉइस इन केस ऑफ टैक्सेबल सप्लाई ऑफ सर्विसेज एंड कंटिन्यूअस सप्लाई ऑफ सर्विसेज. नाउ वी आर कमिंग फॉरवर्ड टू टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई. टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई ऑफ सर्विसेज विच इज मेंशन्ड अंडर सेक्शन 13(2) बेसिकली डील्स विद फॉरवर्ड चार्ज मैकेनिज्म. टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई फॉर सर्विसेज को अगर हम देखें जो तो इट इज मोर और लेस सिमिलर टू द पीओटी रूल्स व्हिच वर इन द erstwhile सर्विस टैक्स लॉ. तो 13(2)(a) and 13(2)(b. 13(2)(a) basically says a case where the invoice is issued within the prescribed time limit. The prescribed time limit is 30 or 45 days after the provision of services. अगर हमारा इनवॉइस विद इन टाइम लिमिट इशू हो चुका है, देन द डेट ऑफ इशुएंस ऑफ इनवॉइस और द डेट ऑफ एंट्री इन बुक्स ऑफ अकाउंट्स बाय द सप्लायर और द डेट ऑफ क्रेडिट इन बैंक अकाउंट बाय द सप्लायर, इन तीनों में से जो भी सबसे पहले होगा दैट विल बी द टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई. 13(2)(b) says invoice is not issued within 30 or 45 days. इन दैट केस जहां हमारा इनवॉइस इशू नहीं हो रहा, तो हम इनवॉइस डेट ना लेके जिस भी दिन हमने सर्विस प्रोवाइड करी, जिस भी दिन हमने सप्लाई करी, उस दिन को या फिर डेट ऑफ पेमेंट को विल टेक द अर्लीस्ट एज द टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई. Next is 13 subsection 3, which deals with RCM services. Majorly, if we say 9.3, 9.3 and 9.4, so for example, we can say GTA and advocate services. In that case, this is also very much similar to the POT rules in the service tax law. उसमें हमारे पास 90 days का grace period होता था. यहाँ पे that 90 days period has been reduced to 60 days. So, what will be the time of supply in case of RCM? The date of payment entered in books of accounts by the recipient of the service, the date of debit in bank account of the recipient, or the day immediately following the 60 days from the date of provision of from the date of invoice of the supplier. इन तीनों में से जो भी earliest होगा that will be the time of supply. Invoice अगर supplier ने 1st of March को raise कर दिया, तो 1st of May को टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई डीम कर लिया जाएगा इन केस देयर इज नो पेमेंट मेड बाय द रेसिपिएंट. नेक्स्ट इज टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई ऑफ सर्विसेज. के केस में time of supply of services in special cases, residuary cases and vouchers, which is very much similar, very totally similar to the cases which we discussed in section 12. जहाँ पे vouchers identifiable हैं तो date of issuance, voucher is not identifiable तो date of redemption of voucher. Residuary cases में return filed है तो date of filing of return. Special charges is again talking about the interest and late fee on account of delayed payment of taxes, delayed payment of consideration. There are certain important points which need to be discussed. First case is what will be the time of supply in case of composite supply. As discussed in first lecture of this webinar series, हमें समझ आया था कि composite समझाया गया था कि composite supply क्या है and what is mixed supply. इन दोनों का concept हमें समझाया था, जिसमें it was like if the supplies if multiple supplies are naturally bundled, they will be constituting as composite supply and principal supply will be the guiding thing. So ऐसे ही since the principal supply will be the guiding factor of that particular naturally bundled supply, तो time of supply भी हम उसी principal supply के accordingly ही identify करेंगे. Second is what will be the time of supply in case of mixed supply. In case there are multiple supplies जहाँ पे हमारा naturally bundled नहीं है and those particular supplies are taxed at different rate of taxes, तो हमारा था हमें बताया था कि in this particular case the supply which is having the highest rate of tax shall be the guiding factor of this particular mixed supply. तो in this case जैसे कि मिक्स उस सप्लाई का नेचर आइडेंटिफाई किया था उस हाईएस्ट टैक्स रेट आइटम ने, ऐसे ही टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई भी वही फैक्टर डिफाइन करेगा, आइडेंटिफाई करवाएगा. फॉर लेट्स से कि एक मिक्स सप्लाई हो रही है, एक बंडल सप्लाई है, नेचुरली बंडल नहीं है बट इट्स अ मिक्स सप्लाई विच इज बीइंग डन इन 2 डिफरेंट टैक्स पीरियड्स. एक सप्लाई का एक चीज गया ऑन 31st of March, उसी सप्लाई का एक पार्ट गया ऑन 1st of April. नाउ सिंस देयर आर 2 टैक्स पीरियड्स इन्वॉल्व्ड, व्हाटएवर इज द हाईएस्ट टैक्स रेट आइटम दैट पर्टिकुलर विल बी द टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई. अब जो 31st March में गया था दैट वाज लायबल टू जीएसटी एट द रेट 18%. जो अप्रैल में गया था दैट वाज लायबल टू जीएसटी एट द रेट 28%. तो अगर हम टैक्सेबिलिटी देखेंगे इस पर्टिकुलर सप्लाई की, तो हम पूरे आई सप्लाई को 28% पे टैक्स करेंगे. उसका टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई भी हम अप्रैल में ही करेंगे बिकॉज दैट 28% आइटम इज द गाइडिंग फैक्टर. नेक्स्ट इज व्हाट विल बी द टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई इन केस ऑफ डिपॉजिट्स. कभी होता है कि हम एडवांस डिपॉजिट्स रिसीव कर लेते हैं. नाउ व्हाट इन केस की deposit receive kiye, now we know that because deposits are not at all taxable until and unless they are used against any consideration of or any supply made. जब तक डिपॉजिट को हमने किसी कंसिडरेशन के अगेंस्ट यूज नहीं किया तब तक हम उस डिपॉजिट का कोई टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई नहीं आइडेंटिफाई करेंगे. जब हमने डिपॉजिट को आइडेंटिफाई कर लिया, यूज कर लिया, एज एंड व्हेन वी आर यूजिंग इट टुवर्ड्स कंसिडरेशन, then only the liability, then only the time of supply shall arise and GST shall be payable on that particular supply, that particular deposit. अब एक सर्कुलर था, सर्कुलर 38/2018 which basically deals with job worker and principal and job worker relationship. उसको समझने से पहले एक सेक्शन 143 था, 143 है CGST एक्ट में which says principal sends inputs and capital goods to its job worker for carrying out the job work. There is a condition that job worker should resend all those inputs and capital goods to the principal within 1 year or 3 years. Input जो है वो 1 year में वापस आ जाना चाहिए, capital goods 3 years में वापस आ जाने चाहिए to the principal. There might be circumstances जहाँ पे job worker fails to send the inputs and capital goods to the principal within the prescribed period. So 143(2) and section 143(3) says that in case the job worker fails to resend the inputs and capital goods back to the principal, तो हम एक डीमिंग फिक्शन मान लेंगे एंड इट शैल बी डीम्ड दैट द प्रिंसिपल हैज सप्लाइड all those inputs and capital goods on the date when they were originally sent by the principal to the job worker. यानी कि अगर इनपुट का केस समझें, 1 year लैप्स हो गया, 1 year लैप्स जिस दिन हुआ उस दिन टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई ना मान के 143(2) कहता है that the principal shall be liable to issue that invoice and pay GST on the date when the inputs were originally sent by him. But इसकी एक clarification issue हुई, but इसकी एक clarification issue हुई by the central government via circular 38/2018 clarifying कि the liability to pay tax in this particular case of the principal shall arise only when the period of 1 year or 3 years expires. तो जो प्रिंसिपल है उसको इनवॉइस भी आफ्टर एक्सपायरी ऑफ दैट पर्टिकुलर पीरियड करना पड़ेगा, प्लस उसको जो अपनी रिटर्न में रिपोर्टिंग है दैट विल आल्सो हैव टू बी डन ओनली आफ्टर द पीरियड ऑफ एक्सपायरी. मतलब कि अगर मार्च पीरियड में वो पीरियड, मार्च मंथ में वो पीरियड एक्सपायर हुआ है 1 ईयर का, तो ही विल हैव टू रिपोर्ट इट इन द रिटर्न ऑफ मार्च मंथ ओनली. So this was time of supply. एक ये circular था 38/2018. Coming on to the last section, which is section 14. Time of supply का last section, section 14. Specifically change in rate of taxes. अब इसमें basically हमें 3 parameters हैं. First is when is the supply being made, before the change of rate or after the change of rate? When is the invoice being issued? And when is the payment being made? So यहाँ पे भी हमारे 2 out of 3 events fall कर जाते हैं, whether before or after. That will be the deciding factor. उसी के हिसाब से हमारा रेट लगेगा and उसी के हिसाब से हमारा टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई आइडेंटिफाई किया जाएगा. So basically section 14 prescribes a 2/3 formula. 2 out of 3 events जिसमें भी फॉल कर रहे हैं उसमें हो जाएगा. फर्स्ट केस में हम एग्जांपल एज्यूम करते हैं, सप्लाई हुआ हमारा बिफोर द रेट ऑफ चेंज ऑफ टैक्स. पहले हमारा कोई आइटम था दैट वाज टैक्सेबल एट 18% एंड पोस्ट इट वाज टैक्सेबल एट 28%. सप्लाई हो गया था एट द रेट ऑफ 18%, बट जो इनवॉइस और पेमेंट हुआ तो वो हुआ जब हमारा टैक्स रेट इंक्रीज टू 28%. इन दिस केस the kingmaker will be the event, will be the phase where 2 events are being occurred. यहाँ पे आफ्टर द चेंज 2 इवेंट हुए हैं, इनवॉइस एंड पेमेंट आफ्टर द चेंज हुए हैं, तो विल हैव दैट पर्टिकुलर सप्लाई ऑफ आइटम विल बी टैक्सेबल एट 28%. जब इनवॉइस बनेगा दैट विल बी मेड एट द रेट ऑफ 28% जीएसटी ओनली. इस केस में जो टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई होगा दैट विल बी इनवॉइस एंड पेमेंट विच एवर इज अर्लियर. बट इन केस इट्स बिकॉज इन केस ऑफ द सप्लाई ऑफ गुड्स, इन केस इट्स अ सप्लाई ऑफ सर्विसेज, तो इनवॉइस एंड पेमेंट जो भी अर्लियर होगा वो हो जाएगा. इन केस इट्स सप्लाई फॉर गुड्स तो इनवॉइस की डेट ही रह जाएगी. सेकंड केस आएगा हमारा, सप्लाई भी पहले होगी, इनवॉइस भी पहले इशू हो गया. अब बिकॉज सप्लाई हैज ऑलरेडी बीन डन, इनवॉइस इज ऑलरेडी बीन डन व्हेन द आइटम वाज टैक्सेबल एट 18%, बट द पेमेंट हैज बीन रिसीव्ड आफ्टर द रेट हैज इंक्रीज्ड टू 28%. तब this particular supply will be taxable at the rate of 18% only, because via 2/3 formula पुराना रेट ही एप्लीकेबल होएगा, क्योंकि उस 18% के फेज में हमारी 2 चीजें हो चुकी थी. इसमें एक स्पेशल केस आता है, मतलब इसमें एक क्वेरी आती है कि बिकॉज द इनवॉइस हैज बीन रेज्ड एट 18%, बट द पेमेंट there is a third case also. supply and payment are done before the change in rate at the rate of 18%, and the invoice has been raised after the change in rate. Invoice इसमें तो 28% बना और उसमें बना पेमेंट आई 18% पे. Second case में invoice बना था 18% पे, but that particular item is liable to GST at 28%. So in that particular case, there's a different case study for this. So basically, जहाँ पे भी 2/3 events आ रहे हैं, that will be the appropriate rate for that particular supply, and the time of supply would be the earlier of invoice and payment in case both are before or after, या फिर जहाँ पे invoice and supply are together and payment and supply are together, तो invoice और payment की date हो जाएगी. अब there is a case study. Let's suppose invoice has been issued before the change. That is, invoice was issued at the rate of 18%. Supply हुआ हमारा after the change जब हमारा tax rate 28% हो चुका था. Similarly, payment हुई हमारी after the change जब हमारा 28% हो चुका था. अब because invoice 18% पे issue हो चुका है already. So in that particular case, this particular supply is liable to 28% क्योंकि हमारा payment भी बाद में हो रही है, supply भी बाद में हो रही है. Because of 2/3 formula, everything is after this change in rate. So we'll have to calculate the GST according to 28%. Now since this 28% calculate करना है और हमारा invoice raise हो चुका है at the rate of 18%, in this particular case हमें एक additional invoice supplementary invoice issue करना पड़ेगा, which could be in form of debit note, and we'll have to collect that 10% extra additional GST from the recipient. So ये हमारा था section 14, which is change in rate of taxes. With this, I would like to thank you all for the patient hearing, and I would like the other speakers to start with the valuation topic.
Thank you very much, Prachi. Thanks for wonderful deliberations on time of supply with appropriate examples wherever required. Now the another topic and a very critical topic is valuation of supply. We have with us Shri Chitresh Gupta ji, eminent speaker and author. I request Chitresh ji. So we will take up questions answer after the session of Chitresh ji if the time will permit. I request Chitresh ji to start his deliberation on valuation. So Chitresh ji is there? Yeah.
Yeah.
Chitresh may start.
Thank you, Khemka ji. First of all, am I audible?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You are
First
audible
of all,
perfectly. Yes.
First of all, I would like to thank CAVM for inviting such a wonderful webinar where all of us can enrich our knowledge in the field of GST. So friends, first of all, the topic assigned to me is valuation, which is very challenging topic, and definitely there are so many issues in this topic. So while going through my presentation, I'll maybe stating some of the case laws and I may be giving some of the opinions. And those opinions may be reflecting my views, and it is possible that the other panelists and other speakers and the other learned professional may be having different opinion than me. So we are here to just share the knowledge, and the ultimate outcome needs to be decided by the different courts, and what the ultimate outcome is held at a later date. So friend, with this background, I am just starting my presentation and sharing my screen. So friends, are you able to see my screen now? Hello?
Yes, sir, we can.
Yes.
Yes.
So I am starting with the presentation. So My topic is valuation. So friends, first of all, the question arises why we need to determine the value. So friends, we have section 9(1) under the CGST Act, which says there shall be levied a tax called Central Goods and Services Tax on all interstate supply of goods or services or both, except the supply of alcoholic liquor for human consumption on the value determined under section 15 and at such rate not exceeding 20% as may be notified by the court. Meaning thereby the whatever tax is to be charged under the GST, that tax has to be charged on the value determined under section 15. Now the question arises, how we need to determine that value. So for that, the government, the CGST Act contains the section 15, and I'll be discussing section 15 in detail. If I talk about the scheme of valuation under GST, we have the section 15 of the CGST Act, and this section is the self-contained section in itself, and there is only one section which deals with the valuation in the entire GST law. And this section has been made applicable to the IGST Act, UTGST Act, and similar sections are also there in SGST Act as well. Then we have rules 27 to rule 35, which are given in chapter 4 of the CGST rules, which govern the valuation in some specific cases. Now friend, let us discuss with transaction value. What is transaction value? जो मेरा section 15(1) है, उसके हिसाब से मेरा valuation कैसे होना चाहिए? So as per section 15 subsection 1, the value of supply of goods or services or both. I don't know why the in the entire law the word both has been used with the goods and services, while we know under the GST whether any transaction can be of goods or can be of services as per schedule to the CGST Act. But I don't know why the lawmaker has used this word both at many places. Now with this, the value of supply of goods or services or both shall be the transaction value, which is the price actually paid or payable for the said supply of goods or services or both, where the supplier and recipient of supply are not related and the price is the sole consideration for supply. Meaning thereby कि जो भी प्राइस आपने अपने कस्टमर से चार्ज करा है फॉर द सप्लाई ऑफ गुड्स और सर्विसेज, दैट विल बी कंसिडर्ड एज अ ट्रांजैक्शन वैल्यू प्रोवाइडेड two conditions are satisfied. One condition is supplier and recipient of supply are not related, यानी कि जो buyer और supplier है वो related नहीं होने चाहिए. And second condition is consideration is the sole consideration for supply, meaning thereby there should not be any other you should not be receiving any other consideration from the recipient of supply. So if these two conditions are satisfied, then the price you have charged from the customer will be treated as transaction value. However, this is subject to certain inclusions and exclusions as provided in section 15 subsection 2 and section 15 subsection 3, which I will be discussing in the subsequent slides. So friends, as we have seen in the previous slide, the buyer, the supplier and the recipient should not be related person. So what is the meaning of term related person is very important. Now the explanation to section 15 define the term related persons in a very comprehensive manner, and I will not be going into each and every this thing because it is very lengthy definition. But I would like to add one thing here, that this definition is very confusing. Like in many places, you can see in the fourth place, the person directly or indirectly owns, controls or holds 25% or more of voting power. Now the question arises, person directly or indirectly. What is the meaning of indirectly, and what type of activities which are indirect will be covered in this word indirectly? Similarly, if I see the fifth clause, it says one of them directly or indirectly controls the other. Now again, the question arises, what is the meaning of directly, indirectly, and again, what is the meaning of control? So these words directly, indirectly, control has not been defined into the GST law. So in my view, it is going to lead to a lot of litigation in future, whether a person is a related person or not. Similarly, if I see the last leg of this definition, it says sole agent, sole distributor, or sole concessionaire is a related person. Now, what is the meaning of this clause? Suppose Maruti is having a distributor, dealers all over India. तो क्या जो मेरे मारुति के डीलर हैं, that will be considered as a related person to Maruti, or it is talking about the sole agent all over India. If suppose a company is there and that company has appointed a sole agent for all over India, that will be considered in this. So friend, these things has not been clarified in the GST law. What will be the situation in that case, and definitely different opinions are possible in these cases. Now friends, there is one judgment of Clariant India Limited, wherein Supreme Court has held a very important proposition. It is price to related person acceptable if it is same as charge to others, meaning thereby, as we have seen under section 15 subsection 1, the transaction value is acceptable provided the supplier and buyer are not related and price is the sole consideration for supply. So in this judgment, the Honorable Supreme Court held that if the same price is charged to the others, in that case, the transaction value is acceptable in case of related party also. So in order to invoke the special valuation rules which are given in the GST valuation rules, it must be proved that the transaction between related parties has influenced the price. If it can be established that the relationship of related person has not influenced the price, in that case, the valuation rules cannot be invoked. Similarly, there are various other judgments also. In case of Thermon Heat Tracers Limited, also Honorable CSTAT Mumbai also hold the same view. And apart from this, there are lot many judgments which have held the same view. Now, when we say price is a sole consideration for sale, so what is the meaning? Is that the price is a sole consideration for sale? This again, this term has been interpreted by the courts in various cases. I just picked up one case. In case of Jindal Photo Films Limited, it is of in this case, what has happened? There is an import of machine with an obligation to purchase raw material from the supplier, meaning thereby Jindal Photo Films Limited imported certain machinery from Fuji Photo Films, Japan, and in the contract there was one stipulation that the Jindal Photo Limited will exclusively purchase the raw material from Fuji Photo Films, Japan for a period of 5 years, and if Jindal Photo Films Limited does not purchase the raw material from the Fuji Photo Films, in that case the Jindal Photo Films will be liable to pay annual license fee of JPY 1 lakh to the Fuji. So it was held that the price charge for the photographic machine did not include license fee related to the know-how embodied in the machine. It is therefore follows that the price paid is not the full value of consideration. Meaning thereby, in our case, when we are handling any valuation issue, we need to see that if there is if we are quoting some price, if we are quoting some price and there is some obligation with regard to that price, in that case the price quoted may not be regarded as source consideration for sale. Now friends, once we determine the transaction value as per section 15 subsection 1, there are certain inclusion and exclusion which are to be done from that transaction value. The inclusions are given in subsection 2 and exclusions are given in subsection 3. So So first of all, I am discussing the inclusions, which is subsection 2. So friends, the value to exclude GST but includes other taxes under any law for the time being in force. मीनिंग देयर बाय अगर मेरे को जो सप्लायर है उसको इनवॉइस पे कोई कुछ और टैक्सेस भी चार्ज करने हैं which are levied under any other law for the time being in force other than GST, then the value of those taxes, duties, cess, fees and charges will be included for the purpose of valuation. Now for take one example, recently in 2018 the issue arose, the TCS which we are collecting under the Income Tax Act on the invoice, whether the value of that TCS will be included in the transaction value, and the GST is also liable to be paid on the TCS. So this was the issue which arose earlier, and the government has issued corrigendum to circular number 76. Why I am saying corrigendum? Earlier when they have issued the circular, they have said the value of TCS should be included for the purpose of calculating transaction value. So later on, they have realized that they have committed a mistake. In that case, they have issued a corrigendum to circular number 76, and wherein they have said the tax collection at source is not a tax on goods, but an interim levy on the possible income arising from the sale of goods by the bearer and to be adjusted against the final income tax liability of the bearer. Thus, TCS would not be includable. Now, friends, again one issue which arose is the applicability of GST on securities transaction tax and stamp duty. Now, there are so many stockbrokers which are collecting the securities transaction tax and the stamp duty from their customers. Now, for the purpose of determining the value of stockbroking services, whether these security transaction tax and stamp duty are liable to be included, this is a question. Now, in case of earlier regime, in case of service tax, this CBIC has clarified that in case of stockbroking services, the liability for stamp duty and STT is that of the purchaser or seller of securities and not of broker. The broker collects and deposits the same on behalf of the purchaser and seller, and that in the capacity of your agent. Therefore, the service tax is not payable on the STT and stamp duty. So friends, here in my view also, since in the earlier regime, it was held that the STT and the stamp duty collected by the stockbrokers are in the form of pure agent. So same analogy can be adopted in GST law also, and these two things may be excluded from the transaction value. Now, the another clause B states that amount paid by recipient on behalf of supplier, meaning thereby कोई पेमेंट सप्लायर को करनी थी जो रिसिपिएंट ने कर दी, तो डेट अमाउंट इज लायबल टू बी इंक्लूडेड इन ट्रांजैक्शन वैल्यू. तो क्लॉज बी कहता है एनी अमाउंट दैट द सप्लायर इज लायबल टू पे in relation to such supply but which has been incurred by the recipient of the supply and not included in the price actually paid or payable for the goods or service of both is includable in the value. Now friends, the word liable to pay is very important. Now the question arises, only when the supplier is liable to pay a certain amount and that has been incurred by the recipient is liable to be included in transaction value. Now, what is the meaning of term liable to pay? So friend, there is no guidance in the GST law what is the meaning of term liable to pay, but in my view, the liable to pay has to be established as per the agreement between the parties. And if there is an agreement between the supplier and the recipient of supply that certain amount is liable to be paid by a recipient, then in that case, the value of that thing which has been incurred by the recipient as per the agreement should not be liable to be included in the transaction value of the supplier. So what is important is we need to draft the agreement very carefully and define the responsibilities of the supplier and the recipient of supply. Now let us take one advance ruling which has been issued on this point. It was with regard to inclusion of cost of diesel provided by recipient. So it is the case of Navodit Agrawal. In this case, what happened? This service recipient is providing diesel to the vehicle used by applicant, who is a transporter in this case, to transport the cement. The diesel so provided by the service recipient to the applicant for use in the truck of the applicant forms an integral and important integral part of the business process, which without the process supply of cement can never get materialized. Meaning thereby, जो advance ruling authority ने held करा कि since the diesel is forms an integral part of the transportation service, so diesel, the cost of diesel should be included in the value of supply provided by the transporter. So in this advance ruling, I have gone through the entire advance ruling. I think in the entire advance ruling, the advance ruling authority have not gone into the contract. What is the contract between the recipient and the supplier of services? So in my view, this advance ruling is totally wrong, because the obligation of the parties can be established through a contract. And if there is a contract between the transporter and the recipient, that the recipient will be providing the diesel, in that case the value of diesel should not be added into the value into the value of supply of transporter, because in that case by way of agreement the supplier is liable to pay liable to supply diesel. So what is important to be seen in this case is the who is liable. Now again, there is a very important issue in this. Now the another issue which arose in this case, the valuation in case of tools, molds, dies supplied by OEM to component manufacturer at free of cost. Now friends, what happens in many cases, like in case of Maruti अपने काफी जो पार्ट सप्लायर है उनको जो है टूल्स या मोल्ड्स वगैरह जो है सप्लाई करती है, और जो कंपोनेंट मैन्युफैक्चरर हैं वो उस टूल्स और मोल्ड्स को यूज करके मारुति के लिए पार्ट बनाते हैं और वो मारुति को सप्लाई करते हैं. नाउ द क्वेश्चन विच अरोज इज जो टूल्स और मोड्स मारुति ने फ्री ऑफ कॉस्ट कंपोनेंट मैन्युफैक्चरर को सप्लाई करे हैं और जो कंपोनेंट मैन्युफैक्चरर यूज कर रहा है पार्ट बनाने में, तो जो टूल्स एंड मोड्स की अमोर्टाइज कॉस्ट है, whether that cost should be included in the valuation of parts to be supplied by component manufacturer to the Maruti. So friends, why this issue was arising in GST law? Because in the earlier excise law, the tool amortization was required to be included in the value of assessable value for calculation of excise duty. So since this practice was going on in the earlier law, now initially we were confused what to do in this case also, whether the tool amortization needs to be valued, needs to be included for the purpose of valuation or not. So in order to clarify this position, the CBIC has issued circular number 47 dated 8th June 2018, wherein they have set contractor terms whose obligation is to procure the molds and tools will determine whether the tool amortization is to be included for the purpose of calculation of the value of supply. Again, the view which I was discussing earlier, there has to be some contract or there has to be some agreement which determine the obligation of the parties. So in this case also the circular has clearly specified कि अगर मारुति और कंपोनेंट मैन्युफैक्चरर के बीच में एग्रीमेंट है और जिस एग्रीमेंट में ये क्लियरली स्पेसिफाई करा हुआ है कि मारुति को टूल्स और मोड्स सप्लाई करने हैं फ्री ऑफ कॉस्ट, in that case tooling amortization is not required to be included in the valuation by the component manufacturer. But if agreement is silent, and there is no contractual terms which define whether the tools and molds are to be supplied by the Maruti or not. And the Maruti is supplied tools and molds to the component manufacturer, and the component manufacturer have used those molds and produce some article. Then in that case, it is in that case the amortization cost of those molds are required to be included in the value of supply by the component manufacturer. Reason being, in that case, it was the obligation of the component manufacturer to procure the mold and produce the parts and supply to the Maruti. Now, in this case, it is the obligation of the supplier which has been satisfied by Maruti. So, in this case, it should be included. So, in nutshell, I want to say there has to be a clear contractual terms whose obligation is to procure the molds and tools. Now, friend, let us come to the another clause C, which says incidental expenses incurred before or at the time of supply is required to be included for the purpose of valuation. It can be such as commission, packing, or any other amount charged by the supplier. So the important word is incurred before or at the time of supply. Now the question arises, what is the time of supply? Because the incidental expenses which are incurred before or at the time of supply are only required to be included. If they are incurred after the time of supply, in that case, those expenses are not required to be included. Sometimes there is a issue जो मेरे पास भी आया कई बार, जैसे कि कई बार goods supplied in a returnable packing. तो ये जो cost of returnable packing है, whether that cost of returnable packing are required to be included in the transaction value. For example, अब जैसे मारुति वगैरह के केस होता है, जो कंपोनेंट मैन्युफैक्चरर होते हैं वो क्या करते हैं कि वो प्रोडक्ट्स को डिफरेंटली पैक नहीं करते, अलग अलग पैक नहीं करते, दे हैव परचेज्ड अ बिन्स. तो वो क्या करते हैं, जो भी पार्ट बने उन्होंने बिन्स में डाल दिए, एंड दोज बिन्स गोज टू द मारुति, एंड मारुति एम्प्टीज द बिन एंड सेंड इट बैक टू द सप्लायर. Now it is a cost of reusable packing, and the bins are used for the purpose of delivering the material to the recipient. Now the issue which arose ki whether the amortized cost of those bins are required to be included for the purpose of valuation. So friends, in my view, that is not required to be included for the purpose of valuation, because it is already factored in your profit and loss account, and that should be the part of that should be included directly in your transaction value. Now the another scenario can be outward freight and insurance charges. Like there can be two possible situations. First is where the supplier agrees to deliver the goods at the bare basis and arranges for the transport and insurance. Suppose I am a supplier who is located in Noida, and I am required to deliver the goods to a buyer who is located in Gujarat. तो buyer says कि भाई आपको मेरी फैक्ट्री गेट पर गुड्स डिलीवर करना है, आप ही ट्रांसपोर्टेशन देखो, आप ही इंश्योरेंस देखो. In that case, the supplier charges for the transportation charges and the insurance in the invoice. Now the question arises कि whether the value of transportation charges and the insurance which are being recovered on the invoice is required to be added for the purpose of valuation. Yes, in my view, these have to be added, because in this case the supply will be completed at the buyer's premises. Now the second question which may come, what should be the rate? At what rate we should be charging GST on this transportation charges and insurance charges required? So friends, when I am supplying some parts and I am charging some rate of tax on the parts, and again I am charging some transportation charges and insurance charges. So in my view, it is a concept of composite supply, and I think this issue must have been discussed in detail by Sushil Verma ji in the supply section. So because the principal supply is the supply of goods, so these charges for transportation insurance are the incidental. So the rate which is applicable to the goods will be applied in this case. The second issue, the third issue which may come in this case is that is sometimes the people say कि सर ये तो एक इनवॉइस था, सपोज मैं एक इनवॉइस में प्रोडक्ट सप्लाई कर रहा हूँ जो डिफरेंट HSN कोड में फॉल करते हैं, किसी पे 5% का रेट था, किसी पे 12% का रेट था, किसी पे 18% का रेट था, उस पर मैंने दिखा दिया कि ट्रांसपोर्टेशन चार्जेस भी हैं और इंश्योरेंस चार्जेस भी हैं। तो हम कह रहे हैं कि भाई इस केस में ये सप्लाई मानी जाएगी ऑफ द प्रिंसिपल मटेरियल। तो इन इस केस में जैसे कि हम कह रहे हैं कि इट विल बी ट्रीटेड एज सप्लाई ऑफ गुड्स। तो क्वेश्चन अराइज हुआ जब डिफरेंट रेट्स पे गुड्स टैक्सेबल हैं, तो ये किस गुड्स के का रेट्स में इस पे लगाऊं, 5% लगाऊं, 12% लगाऊं, 18% लगाऊं। तो सर इन माय व्यू in this case we need to bifurcate these charges on some reasonable basis to different products, and accordingly tax should be charged in that case. Now the another case can be if goods are supplied ex factory and the buyer comes to my factory and takes the goods and takes to his factory in Gujarat. So in that case, friends, since the supply has been made at the factory gate, in that case, outward freight and insurance are not required to be included for the purpose of valuation. Now, let us discuss clause D. The clause D deals with interest or late fee or penalty for delayed payment. It says interest or late fee penalty for delayed payment of any country's consideration should be included in value of supply. First of all, मैं इसको इतनी बार पढ़ा बट आई एम फेल टू अंडरस्टैंड कि सप्लाई तो मेरी पहले हो गई होगी। सप्लाई सपोज मैंने जो है अप्रैल में सप्लाई करी, मैंने कहा जी आपको 30 दिन में पेमेंट करनी है या सपोज 60 दिन में पेमेंट करनी है आपको जून तक। तो जब उसकी पेमेंट नहीं आई, डिले आ रही है, तभी तो देयर इज अ डिलेड पेमेंट एंड आई विल बी चार्जिंग द इंटरेस्ट। तो वेयर इज द क्वेश्चन ऑफ इंक्लूजन इन द वैल्यू? The value has already been made, folks. The supply has already been made and I have already raised the invoice. This situation will occur later on when the payment has not been received by me at the appointed time. So why it is given in the inclusion clause? This is the first thing which I want to say here. Now it says inclusion in the value of supply. The supply has already been made. So whether it is an independent supply, yeah, it will be considered as a supply, a part of supply which has been made at an earlier date. This is again an issue which needs to be discussed. Now the another thing is this section covers only delayed payment for any consideration. If there is a delayed payment due to any other reason, then this section is not triggered. And in fact, if you see, the Prachi has also discussed in time of supply, in case of interest on delayed payment of consideration, the time of supply is the point when you receive the payment. So meaning thereby, I have made the principal supply in April and I have not received the payment. In that case, I need to raise the invoice at a later date, and for that later date invoice, I need to pay the GST when I realize the payment. So again, this is a difficult proposition here. Now, the another issue is whether liquidated damages paid by the supplier as per contract reduces the value of consideration. Meaning thereby, suppose supplier ने recipient को कोई contract दिया, अब supplier ने कुछ सप्लाई करनी थी, सपोज 1 लाख रुपए की सप्लाई करनी थी, और कॉन्ट्रैक्ट में लिखा था कि अगर वो सप्लाई जो है उसकी क्वालिटी सही नहीं होती तो रिसिपिएंट जो है 10% लिक्विडेटेड डैमेजेस काटेगा पेमेंट से। अब सप्लायर ने सप्लाई कर दिया मटेरियल जो है रिसिपिएंट को, लेकिन उसमें कुछ जो है कुछ कमी थी या कुछ इशू था, तो जो रिसिपिएंट है उसने 10% लिक्विडेटेड डैमेजेस काट ली। और उसको 90,000 रुपए सप्लायर को पे कर दिए. Now the issue which is coming before many professional is whether this transaction is the adjustment to the original supply, meaning thereby 1 lakh was for the rupees 1 lakh for the original supply and 10,000 is the reduction in value and the net supply is of 90,000 rupees, or whether this liquidated damages represent a separate supply at the end of the recipient. So this is the glaring issue which is going on nowadays, and we have one advance ruling in case of Maharashtra State Power Generation Company Limited, wherein the Honorable Advance Ruling Authority has held that the liquidated damages held to be a separate supply of service under the clause 2nd to section 7 of the CGST Act, meaning thereby जो सप्लाई है वो 1 लाख की रहेगी और उस पर टैक्स ऑलरेडी गया है, और जो रिसिपिएंट है वो लिक्विडेटेड डैमेजेस की इनवॉइस रेज करेगा और उस पर अप्रोप्रिएट टैक्स चार्ज करेगा. Now let us come to the another clause, which is clause E. Subsidies directly linked to price excluding government subsidies, meaning thereby अगर कोई भी जो है सप्लायर ने सब्सिडीज रिसीव करी है which is directly linked to the price shall be included for the purpose of valuation. But if the subsidies are provided by the central government and the state government, then those subsidies are not liable to be included in the value. Now, friend, these are the 5 inclusions which are defined in the GST law for the purpose of determining the value. Now, let us come to the exclusions from the value of supply. So, exclusion may be by way of discounts, which they have given in section 15, subsection 3. Now, friends, when I say discount can be primarily of 2 types. One is प्री सप्लाई डिस्काउंट मतलब सप्लाई से पहले, एंड पोस्ट सप्लाई डिस्काउंट मतलब सप्लाई होने के बाद. तो पहले डिस्कस करते हैं प्री सप्लाई डिस्काउंट. तो इन केस ऑफ प्री सप्लाई डिस्काउंट इट इज टोटली अलाउड प्रोवाइडेड इट इज ड्यूली रिकॉर्डेड इन द इनवॉइस, मीनिंग देयर बाय अगर आप कोई भी डिस्काउंट जो है इनवॉइस पे दे रहे हैं तो वो फुली अलाउड है एज डिडक्शन फ्रॉम द वैल्यू. तो ये डिस्काउंट किसी भी प्रकार का हो सकता है. यू कैन कॉल इट कैश डिस्काउंट, ट्रेड डिस्काउंट, क्वांटिटी डिस्काउंट, any type of any name you can give to this discount. If this discount is mentioned in the invoice, then it can be reduced for arriving at the transaction value. Now the second type is post supply discount. So post supply discount is a discount which is provided after the supply has already effected, and under GST law the law says you can also reduce the post supply discount, but it is subject to 3 conditions which they have given in the section itself. Now what are those conditions? The first is established in terms of agreement entered before at the time of supply, meaning thereby अगर जो है supplier post supply discount दे रहा है तो it should be established in terms of agreement entered before at the time of supply, meaning thereby ऐसा नहीं है कि भी जो है supplier ने सप्लाई तो अप्रैल में करी और सितंबर में जो है सप्लायर ने कहा नहीं जी मैं तो इतना डिस्काउंट दूंगा, तो इन दैट केस डिस्काउंट इज नॉट एलिजिबल फॉर डिडक्शन, रीजन बीइंग it was not known at the time of supply. Now the another thing is it should be established in terms of agreement. Now what is the meaning of agreement here? It is a question, because in many companies I have seen in case of discount there is no agreement between the supplier and the recipient, and the discounts are generally given by way of schemes, and there may be some mailers to the distributor and dealers. So it can be seen in those cases whether it can be said it is established in terms of the agreement between the supplier and the recipient. Now the second condition is it should be specifically linked to the relevant invoices, meaning thereby अगर वो invoice से link नहीं है so it will not be allowed as deduction from the value. Suppose I can take one example of the quantity discount. Suppose मैंने सप्लायर ने कुछ चीज सप्लाई करी और उसने कहा जी कि अगर आप एक सर्टेन क्वांटिटी आप एक साल पे लेते हो तो मैं आपको 10% का डिस्काउंट दूंगा एट द ईयर एंड. तो रिसिपिएंट ने उससे ज्यादा की क्वांटिटी खरीद ली. So in that case, since this agreement was already agreed upon before the supply, so definitely first condition is satisfied. Now in this case, when we need to do the calculation, we need to calculate the discount invoice wise, and the supplier will have to issue the as many credit notes as the invoices. So friends, one thing I would like to also mention here, recently section 34, which relates to issuance of credit notes, has been amended by the CGST Amendment Act 2018, and wherein it was said that the one credit note can be issued for multiple invoices. But here the corresponding amendment has not been brought in by the legislature. Here it says specifically linked to the relevant invoices. Now it is not becoming clear whether I can still issue the one credit note for the total amount of discount, or I have to issue the invoice wise credit note. So that needs to be seen on in the cases. The third condition is ITC should have been reversed by the recipient. Now again, it is a very difficult condition which has been casted on the shoulders of the supplier, and I don't know how supplier will check whether the ITC has been reversed by the recipient, because I cannot go and verify the recipient books of account and check whether the ITC has been reversed or not. And it is definitely a very difficult proposition, and it may lead to various disputes at a later date. So on the safer side, the one possible option can be we can obtain the letter from the recipient that he has reversed the ITC against the corresponding credit note issued by the supplier, or we can have some sort of undertaking from the supplier. But definitely it will be difficult for the supplier to prove that the ITC has been reversed by the recipient. Now friends, let us discuss some of the cases which are relevant to discount here. First is buy more, save more offers. So sometimes what happens कि जो हमें जो है ज़्यादा परचेज करने पे ज़्यादा डिस्काउंट मिलता है. फॉर एग्जांपल, get 10% discount for purchases above 5,000, 20% discount for purchases above 10,000, or 30% discount for purchases above 20,000. So what should be the value with these kind of staggered discounts? So friends, the CBIC has issued a circular number 92 dated 7 March 2019, wherein it has been stated that since these kind of discounts are mentioned on the invoice at the time of supply, these are duly deductible from the value. Now the another is buy one get one free offer. कि मैं क्या, जैसे कि हम कई बार मार्केट पे जाते हैं, मॉल पे जाते हैं, वो कहते हैं जी एक शर्ट के साथ 2 शर्ट फ्री, या एक के साथ 1 फ्री, या आप 3 गारमेंट्स खरीदें 5 फ्री ले जाएं. तो इस केस में जो फ्री आइटम आ रही है, क्या वो एक्चुअली में फ्री है या उसकी कोई कॉस्ट है? अगर फ्री है तो क्या मुझे सेक्शन 17 सबसेक्शन 5 क्लॉज ई में उसका क्रेडिट रिवर्स करना है, नहीं करना? So these are the questions which arise in such cases. So in order to clarify these situations, again the CBIC has issued circular number 92, wherein they have clarified the position. तो उसमें उन्होंने कहा the companies announce offers like buy one get one free. For example, buy one soap and get one soap free, or get one toothbrush free along with purchase of toothpaste. तो इस केस में ये जो सप्लाई है ये क्या है? तो सर्कुलर में इन्होंने कहा it is not an individual supply of free goods but a case of 2 or more individual supplies where a single price is being charged for the entire supply. So it can be described as a supply of 2 goods for 1 price. So they have said कि nothing is free in this world. तो जो free जो supply जा रही है उसकी value already included है दूसरे product की value में. तो इस केस में आपको ITC रिवर्स नहीं करना है और कोई भी डिस्काउंट इस केस में नहीं है. Now the question arises, what happens कि अब ये ठीक है जो है ये combined supply है. Now the question arises, जो ये supply हो रही है, whether it is a composite supply or mixed supply. I am sure सुशील वर्मा जी ने ये डिटेल में डिस्कस करा होगा, बट मैं स्लाइटली इसको टच अपॉन कर देता हूँ. सपोज एक ऑफर आया जिसमें उन्होंने कहा कि हल्दीराम का 1 किलो का अगर 1 kg भुजिया आप लेते हैं तो उसके साथ एक वाटर बॉटल फ्री. तो whether it is a mixed supply or composite supply, और देयर में भी ये सिचुएशन जैसे कि एक ऑफर आया कि सपोज आप 1 kg हल्दीराम के अगर भुजिया लेते हैं तो 100 ग्राम का दाल बीजी का पैकेट फ्री. तो इन दैट केस वेदर इट इज ए कंपोजिट सप्लाई और मिक्स सप्लाई. तो फ्रेंड्स, फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल, in the first case when the bhujia is supplied along with the bottle, so these are not naturally bundled in ordinary course of business. So these supplies may be treated as mixed supply, and in case of mixed supply the rate which is applicable to the highest rate which is applicable to the item will be applicable. So in this case we need to be, in case of bundled supplies, we have to be very careful that we should not be supplying something as free wherein the rate of tax is more than on the free item than the actual supply. If the rate of tax is same, then definitely there is no issue, and if the rate of tax on principal item is higher than the free item, then also there is no issue. Then in this case they also clarified that ITC shall be available to the supplier and there is no need for any reversal or something. Now let us discuss some more issues in post supply discount. The CBIC also should one another circular which is 105, which is later on withdrawn, but they have held very important proposition in the circular, so that's why I'm discussing those. First is post sale discount given by supplier without any obligation, meaning thereby जो सप्लायर है उसने पोस्ट सप्लाई डिस्काउंट सप्लायर को दिया है रिसिपिएंट को विदाउट एनी फर्दर ऑब्लिगेशन. मतलब कि उसको कोई स्पेशल सेल्स ड्राइव नहीं करनी, कोई एडवर्टीजमेंट नहीं करना, कोई कंपेन नहीं करना, उसने कुछ भी नहीं करना. उसने जस्ट कहा कि आपको पोस्ट सप्लाई डिस्काउंट इतना मिलेगा. तो द वैल्यू ऑफ सच काइंड ऑफ डिस्काउंट is excludable from the value subject to satisfaction of other condition of section 15 subsection 3 clause B. Now there may be some post sale discount which has been given by the supplier with further obligation on the part of recipient or dealer. Maybe कि supplier ने कहा कि भी आप जो है कुछ स्पेशल सेल्स ड्राइव चलाओ जिसमें जो है आप कस्टमर को अट्रैक्ट करो, कुछ एडवर्टीजमेंट दो, एग्जीबिशन लगाओ, तो हम आपको इतना डिस्काउंट देंगे. तो इस केस में जो सीबीआईसी का सर्कुलर था उसने कहा कि जो डीलर ने स्पेशल सेल्स ड्राइव चलाई है, ये एडवर्टीजमेंट कंपेन करा है, एडवर्टीजमेंट वो एग्जीबिशन वगैरह लगाई है, दैट इज ए सेपरेट सप्लाई ऑफ सर्विस फ्रॉम डीलर टू द सप्लायर. तो इन दिस केस द डीलर शुड बी issuing the invoice and charging the appropriate GST on this. So it was the very absurd interpretation which has been taken by the CBIC, and there was a lot of hue and cry because of this issue. The another clarification was additional discount given by the supplier of goods to dealer to offer special reduced price. So again, this was again a very absurd position which was given by the circular. Like suppose मेरा जो होंडा सिटी का पैसा है 10 लाख रुपए का है, तो होंडा कार्स जो मैन्युफैक्चरर ने अपने डीलर से कहा कि भाई आप जो मारुति की होंडा सिटी कार है आप 8 लाख पे बेचो कस्टमर को, तो जो 2 लाख का शॉर्टफॉल है वो मैं आपको दूंगा और 8 लाख रुपए आप जो है कस्टमर से ले लेना। तो आपको जो 10 लाख रुपए की कंसिडरेशन मिलनी है आपको टोटल 10 लाख रुपए मिलेंगे, लेकिन 2 लाख मैं दूंगा, 8 लाख रुपए आपको कस्टमर देगा। तो इस केस में इस सर्कुलर में कहा गया कि जो जो इनवॉइस है वो जो है 10 लाख रुपए की बनेगी। बेसिकली जो जीएसटी जाएगा वो 10 लाख रुपए पे जाएगा। एंड दे हैव सेड कि since as per the consideration section, the consideration may come from any person, not only the recipient. So in that case, the consideration which has been paid by the car manufacturer will also be considered for the purpose of valuation of supply. But the recipient the recipient of car will only be eligible to claim ITC only on the price which has been actually paid by him. So this is again a very difficult proposition, and in my view it is totally wrong. And the price which has been the price reduction which has been given by the Honda car manufacturer should have been adjusted to reduce the price of the car by the dealer, and it should not be considered as a consideration. Then the another issue which was clarified is post-sale discount granted by supplier of goods is not permitted to be excluded in terms of 15(3)(b) section 15 subsection 3 and clause B. मीनिंग thereby उन्होंने कहा कि अगर कोई आप ऐसा डिस्काउंट देना चाहते हो जो परमिटेड नहीं है देना और जो एज पर जीएसटी लॉ जो है वैल्यू में से कम नहीं हो सकता, तो उस केस में आप क्या करो, आप फाइनेंशियल और कमर्शियल क्रेडिट नोट इश्यू कर दो और उसमें कोई भी आप जीएसटी चार्ज मत करो। और इस केस में जो डीलर है उसको आईटीसी भी रिवर्स करने की जरूरत नहीं है, मतलब रिसिपिएंट को इस केस में आईटीसी भी रिवर्स करने की जरूरत नहीं है। दैट कैन बी adjusted with the payment to be made by the recipient. So friend, this is very important clarification which has been given by the circular, and I think इस क्लेरिफिकेशन के बाद मेरे हिसाब से हमें डेबिट वो क्रेडिट नोट को विद जीएसटी इशू करना है नहीं करना, ये एक क्वेश्चन ही खत्म हो जाता है। जब उन्होंने कह दिया कि भाई सप्लायर फाइनेंशियल और कमर्शियल क्रेडिट नोट इशू कर सकता है विदाउट चार्जिंग जीएसटी और रिसिपिएंट को अपना आईटीसी रिवर्स नहीं करना, तो मेरे हिसाब से तो सारी प्रॉब्लम ही खत्म हो जाती है कि जो है क्रेडिट नोट पे जीएसटी लगाना है नहीं लगाना, बारिंग ओनली इन केसेस जहां पर रिसिपिएंट को क्रेडिट नहीं मिलना है। अगर रिसिपिएंट को क्रेडिट मिलना है तो इन दैट केस सप्लायर कैन जस्ट इशू द फाइनेंशियल कमर्शियल क्रेडिट नोट to the recipient, and the recipient can adjust that credit note against the payment to be made to the supplier, and there is no need of ITC reversal by the supplier, and the matter ends here. But there can be second case wherein the financial credit note has been issued by the supplier, but the recipient was not eligible for the ITC. So in this case, the GST portion pertaining to that credit note becomes the cost in the hands of the dealer. So in that case, we need to think carefully, and we need to try to cover our transaction in section 15 subsection 3 clause B. But if the recipient is eligible for full input tax credit, so in that case, in my view, financial and commercial credit note can be raised by the supplier, and this has been reiterated by the CBIC also in 2 circulars, and one of these which I am sharing with you. Now friends, this circular which I have just discussed, circular number 105, has been withdrawn ab initio by circular number 112. Now the issue which is coming and which is coming to everybody's mind is that what is the impact of withdrawal of this circular, and now how the tax authorities will take the view in such cases. So friends, again, the confusion has been restored by the department and everybody is struggling to find the solution to these questions. Now friends, I am done with the section. Now let us come to the GST valuation rules. तो कब जो पहला क्वेश्चन खरे के माइंड में आता है वो ये आता है कि मैं जीएसटी वैल्यूएशन रूल में कब जाऊं। तो मेरा सेक्शन 15 सबसेक्शन 4 कहता है वेयर द वैल्यू ऑफ सप्लाई ऑफ गुड्स और सर्विसेज ऑफ बोथ कैन नॉट बी डिटरमाइंड अंडर सेक्शन 15 सबसेक्शन 1। मतलब जो हमने सेक्शन 15 सबसेक्शन 1 करा है उसके हिसाब से अगर मैं वैल्यू नहीं निकाल सकता, ओनली इन दैट केस आई हैव टू गो to the valuation rules. Otherwise, there is no need to go to the valuation rules. You have to stick to the section 15, subsection 1, 2, and 3. There are some important terms like open market value and the supply of goods or services of both of like kind and quality, which has been defined and has been used again and again in the rules, but I'm just skipping this because I have lot many slides and the time may be less for the deliberation. So you can just go through these definition when you have time. Now let us see rule 27, which is the first valuation rule. Value of supply where the consideration is not wholly in money, meaning thereby कि कुछ तो आपको पैसों में आ रहा है, कुछ तो आपको मनी कंसिडरेशन आ रही है, कुछ आपको इन काइंड कंसिडरेशन आ रही है। तो इस केस में आपका वैल्यूएशन कैसे होगा? तो फर्स्ट स्टेप इज, अगर ये केस है तो फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल यू हैव टू टेक द ओपन मार्केट वैल्यू ऑफ दैट सप्लाई. तो फ्रेंड, दिस रूल इज एप्लीकेबल बोथ इन केस ऑफ गुड्स एज वेल एज सर्विसेज. इफ ओपन मार्केट इज नॉट अवेलेबल, then total of consideration in money plus amount in money as is equivalent to consideration not in, meaning thereby जो consideration आपको money में आई है वो plus money equivalent of consideration not in money will be the value. The step third is value of supply of goods or services or both of like kind and quality. अगर step 1 में भी नहीं आप determine कर पा रहे, step 2 में भी नहीं determine कर पा रहे, तो गुड्स ऑफ लाइक काइंड एंड क्वालिटी यू कैन कंसिडर. अगर आप अर्लियर 3 स्टेप्स में वैल्यू नहीं निकाल पाते, इन दैट केस यू हैव टू रिसोर्ट टू द स्टेप 4 which says value determined by cost plus method or residual method, which I'll be discussing in the subsequent slides. Now there is one clarification in case of construction services wherein it was said that in case of supply of construction service involving transfer property in land or undivided share of land, what should be the value of supply of service. तो इसमें जो है, जो हमारी नोटिफिकेशन आई है उसमें इसका वैल्यूएशन प्रिस्क्राइब है. Although I am not going into the legality whether they can prescribe the valuation by way of notification or not, I am not going into the legality, but as per the notification, it says the total amount charged for such supply minus value of land or undivided share of land will be the value of consideration, and value of land will be considered as 1/3 of the total amount charged for such supply. Now rule 28, value of supply of goods or services or both between distinct or related person other than through an agent. तो पहला जो इम्पोर्टेंट पॉइंट मैं आज पढ़ रहा था, आज ही मेरे को ध्यान में आया कि इट इज एप्लीकेबल not only in case of distinct person, it is also applicable in case of related person, meaning thereby if there are two separate entities, there are two separate companies, but those companies are related as per the explanation given in section 15 and they are falling under the related person definition, then also this rule can be applied for valuation provided they have influenced the price. So friend, this is very important rule which lot of professional has been using every day. तो उसमें one by one मैं ले लेता हूँ. तो value of supply between distinct and related person. First, recipient eligible for full ITC. Value declared on the invoice deemed as open market value. तो पहला क्वेश्चन जो आया, कई बार क्या हो रहा था, इंटर ब्रांच ट्रांसफर हो रहे थे. मेरी जो है, मैं नोएडा में लोकेटेड हूँ, मेरी ब्रांच गुजरात में भी है, मैं स्टॉक ट्रांसफर कर रहा हूँ. तो क्वेश्चन ये आ रहा था कि भाई मैं किस वैल्यू पे स्टॉक ट्रांसफर करूँ. That value can always be challenged by the government that it is not a sole consideration for sale because the transaction is within the related parties. So it was open to the dispute by the authorities. So in order to avoid all these things, the very important rule and which has been given, the relaxation has been given and said, if the recipient is eligible for full ITC, then the value declared on the invoice deemed as open market value, meaning thereby whatever value you have indicated on the invoice, then that value shall be deemed to be the open market value. Now friend, just to share with you, now sometimes the question arises in my mind, there may be a situation that the supplier, the recipient in this case may be having some exempt supply also, but the supply which the supplier has made is taxable, and for that he is eligible for the full ITC because that is for the specific supply, specific to that supply only. But there may be certain other common, there may be some other activities for which some common ITC needs to be apportioned. Now the question arises, what is the meaning that the recipient eligible for full ITC? Now, whether the word full ITC will say the ITC in respect of that particular supply, or the ITC as a whole should be seen in that registration. So in my view, again, that is a view. In my view, we have to see the whether the recipient is eligible for full ITC in respect of that particular supply only. Otherwise, it will lead to lot many issues.
10 minutes. 10 minutes.
Okay. Now, the second thing is goods are intended for further supply as such by recipient at the option of the supplier. मतलब कि जो है supplier ने recipient को supply करा और recipient उसको आगे as it is as such supply कर रहा है, meaning thereby he is doing no value addition. He is just trading into those goods. In that case, the value can be 90% of the price charged for the supply of goods of like kind and quality by the recipient to his customer. तो ultimate customer से जो भी price charge हुआ है वो उसका 90% can be taken as value, and it is only the option available and it is not mandatory. In other cases, apart from these cases, how the valuation is to be done, it is given in the third note. Value will be the open market value, and open market value not determinable. Value of supply of goods or services of like kind and quality, and if value cannot be determined from the above method, then as per rule 30 and 31, which is cost plus method and residual method. Now the another rule is 29, value of supply of goods made or received through an agent. So again, step 1 it shall be the open market value, and step 2, agar open market value is not available, then supplier has the option to value the supply at the 90% of the price charged for the supply of goods of like kind and quality by the recipient to the unrelated customer. मतलब एजेंट ने जिसको आगे बेचा उससे जो प्राइस चार्ज करा उसका 90% can be considered as value, and in case the value cannot be determined as per step 1 and 2, then cost plus method or residual method, in that order. Then valuation rule 30, which talks about the valuation based on the cost plus method. तो इसमें कहते हैं कि 100 value shall be the 110% of the cost of production or acquisition of such goods or provision of services, meaning thereby अगर cost plus method apply करना है तो 110% of cost of production acquisition of such goods or services. So the question arises how to determine the cost. Now, under GST law, no guidance has been given in how to determine the cost, so it will be very challenging. But in the excise regime, the cash score was used for determining the value for various purposes of excise duty. So in my view, the cash score can be used in this case also, but definitely determining the value of provision of services will be a difficult task. And there is an assumption to the supplier of services, and the assumption of supplier of services, instead of applying the cost plus method, can directly apply the residual rule. तो अंडर रेजुअल रूल अगर मेरा कोई भी पहले जो हमने रूल डिस्कस करे हैं, अगर उससे हमें वैल्यू नहीं निकाल पाता इन रूल 27 to 30, in that case I can go to the residual rule, and the residual rule says the value to be determined by reasonable means by using the principle of section 15 and the valuation rules. So what are the reasonable means has not been defined in the GST law, and the time will tell what will be the reasonable means. Now let us come to the spatial valuation method which are given under section 15 subsection 5. I may not be able to complete fully, but I'll give you some food for thought in that case. The first thing is this section 15 subsection 5 says, notwithstanding anything contained in subsection 15.1 or section 15.4. 15.1 जो है नॉर्मल ट्रांजैक्शन वैल्यू की बात करता है, और सेक्शन 15.4 कहता है कि if value cannot be determined by section 15.1, then you can go to the valuation rules. The value of such supplies as may be notified by the government, मतलब the government notify करेगी कौन कौन सी supplies है, उसकी value उससे determine होगी. On the recommendation of the council shall be determined in such manner as may be prescribed. So meaning thereby जो section 15 subsection 5 है, उसने मेरे सेक्शन 15 सबसेक्शन 1 और सेक्शन 15 सबसेक्शन 4 को दोनों को ही ओवरराइड कर दिया. नाउ लेट अस कम टू द रूल 32 सब रूल 1 which deals with notified supplies. वो कहता है कि notwithstanding anything contained in the provision of this chapter, chapter means valuation का chapter जिसमें valuation का rules दिए गए हैं, the value in respect of specified supplies shall at the option of the supplier be determined in such manner as provided herein. Now friends, sometimes the doubt comes here कि जब मेरा जो मेन सेक्शन है सेक्शन 15 सबसेक्शन 5, उसने मेरा सेक्शन 15 सबसेक्शन 1 और सेक्शन 15 सबसेक्शन 4 को पहले ही ओवरराइड कर दिया. Now again in the rule 32 sub rule 1, I am giving the option to the supplier to adopt this valuation. So again in my view is not a correct position of law, and I think there can be some possible different views whether it is an option available to the supplier or it is mandatory for the supplier notified services to adopt this valuation. Now friends, if I talk about the spatial valuation method, we have the spatial valuation method for purchase or sale of foreign currency, including money changing. Then we have spatial method for booking of ticket for air travel by an air travel agent, life insurance business, value of supply of second-hand goods, then value of redeemable vouchers, stamps, coupon and tokens and services between distinct persons. So friend, as you know, मेरे पास टाइम बहुत कम है, मैं एक आध इसमें से केस लेता हूं जो मुझे थोड़ा सा ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट लगा.
आई थिंक चित्रेश जी, हम डिस्कशन को स्लाइड्स आपने बहुत अच्छे से प्रिपेयर करी ही हैं. आपके डेलिब्रेशंस को हम यहाँ पर स्टॉप कर देते हैं. जिनको स्पेसिफिक मेथड्स में जाना होगा वो चले जाएंगे, बिकॉज वैल्यूएशंस में देयर आर मैनी इश्यूज. क्वेश्चंस तो बहुत है ही हैं, बट बिफोर वी टेक अप द क्वेश्चंस, उससे पहले बहुत सारे कुछ इश्यूज हैं जो कि लर्नेड पैनलिस्ट डिस्कस करना चाहेंगे. तो मैं अब इसको सेशन को क्वेश्चन डिस्कशन के लिए ओपन करना चाहता हूं, बिकॉज वेरी वैल्यूएबल डिस्कशंस विल कम. Members will be having the benefit of your presentations later on, वो उनको share करी दी जाएगी. So now I think we shall move on to for discussion on the issues. Very many issues will come up: post sales discounts, liquidated damages, late fees and other thing, subsidy. So I now open for I now open the house for discussion. I request all the panelists, if they have any thoughts or discussions, please initiate. Sushil ji, Rakesh ji, Vineet ji, other panel speakers, everybody is now requested to take their views on the subject, and
I have
let
like
us
one,
start. Yeah, please start.
yeah, I have like one observation regarding time of supply when the goods are supplied in the lots.
Okay.
Now, when say एक एग्जांपल लेते हैं कि मेरे पास में कॉन्ट्रैक्ट है कि जहाँ पे मुझे 1000 टन सप्लाई करना है, एंड मेरे पास जो डिस्पैच हो रही है वो 100 टन्स के लॉट में हो रही है. Then as per the section 31, I need to raise the invoice before the starting of lot. तो इसका मतलब ये होगा कि मेरा जो टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई है वो जिस समय मेरा पास में फर्स्ट मूवमेंट है उसमें 1000 टन का जितनी भी वैल्यू है उसके ऊपर मेरा टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई का चालू हो गया. पर आईटीसी जो मेरे को मिलेगा जिस समय मेरे पास में कब लॉट्स का कंप्लीशन होगा उस समय मिलेगा. दिस इज वन ऑब्जर्वेशन व्हिच आई नीड टू मेक.
Yes, very good observation, or it has a last very critical impact on input
Correct.
tax credit of the recipient. Yes, so I open one by one. There are certain issues. I open up the issues for the members, panelist deliberations. So let us first take the discussion on what are the cost incurred by the recipient. What exactly we mean by that? चित्रेश जी ने अपना इशू दिया है, but what troubles and what issues may come up in this particular cost incurred?
अनम्यूट सुशील जी अनम्यूट करेंगे सर.
सुशील जी प्लीज अनम्यूट कर लें.
हो गया?
हाँ
हाँ
जी
जी.
Yeah. Now supposing there was a contract FOR from Ahmedabad to Delhi,
Yes, precisely.
right? And the freight is paid by the buyer in Delhi.
Hmm.
That is the case covered directly by this. Or supposing you were buying some round steel, and the round steel was to do the cutting, was required to be cut to pieces. It is not done, and the supplier requests the buyer, you cut it, pay up, will include. That's another part which will be included in the sale price. There are many issues.
There are many issues.
There are many issues.
या सुशील जी, जो आपका सेकंड वाला एग्जांपल है उसको मैं कंकर करता हूं, पर जो फर्स्ट वाला एग्जांपल है मैं उसमें अपना इंटरप्रिटेशन और अपना व्यू रख देता हूं.
It's covered by Supreme Court ruling.
या जो CIF कॉन्ट्रैक्ट है उसमें अल्टीमेटली अगर ये होता है कि
I'm not talking of CIF contract at all. I'm talking of FOR.
या
They're totally different contracts.
तो FOR में अगर रिसिपिएंट कॉस्ट इनकर कर रहा है तो इन माय व्यू FOR कॉन्ट्रैक्ट में कॉस्ट ऑफ फ्रेट एंड इंश्योरेंस इज द ऑब्लिगेशन ऑफ द रिसिपिएंट ओनली.
No. It is seller. He has to supply free on road. It should be a destination. The freight is covered in the cost of supplier, not buyer.
So to my understanding, in FOR contract the freight is on the part of the recipient. What do you say, Sandeep ji and Rakesh ji? It is in the CIF contract that the freight and insurance is on the part of the supplier.
No, FOR contract means all expenses including up to time of destination. Hyderabad Engineering versus Commissioner, Supreme Court.
तो यस, अगर FOR कॉन्ट्रैक्ट को हम लेते हैं, बिकॉज FOR और FOB हम उसमें एक ही चीज है, एंड FOB या FOR जब हम कहते हैं तो फ्री ऑन बोर्ड और फ्री ऑन रेल कहते हैं. फ्री ऑन बोर्ड और फ्री ऑन रेल का
पार्ट ऑफ सेलर.
सर इसमें ओनली एक छोटा सा ऑब्जर्वेशन, जो कंक्लूजन है वो सिर्फ यही है कि यदि सप्लायर की लायबिलिटी है और रिसिपिएंट ने पे किया है तो देन इट कम्स अंडर द विद इन द परव्यू ऑफ.
एब्सोल्युटली.
अब इसके अंदर एक और भी आएगा, क्योंकि अभी जैसे हम कोरोना की बात भी करेंगे तो इस समय बहुत सारे केसेस हैं कि जहां पर जो सप्लायर है अपना काम नहीं कर पा रहा है, एंड देन ही इज रिक्वेस्टिंग रिसिपिएंट to basically to perform the basically his job.
Yes.
Now these contracts will also come under the trouble.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The other observation, since we don't have time.
No, we have time. We will go for 20 minutes from now.
For the section 15.
Yeah.
English CGST Act does not define price. That's a very shocking thing. The price is not defined. Though it is section 15 says how shall this be determined. Price is not defined at all. Similarly, open market value, it is defined in the act. So there is no ambiguity on the open market value. Section 2, subsection 73 defines open market value. And section 15, when you take shelter under related persons, there is a very beautiful Supreme Court ruling, though under excise. If you want to, you can note down. Commissioner Central Excise versus Xerographic, 257 ELT 11 Supreme Court, where Supreme Court, taking out a similar definition of related person, said three things need to be proved. That in both the transactions, there were a mutual interest, and the test of related party satisfied as per definition given in the statute. Third thing, the price was less than the normal value and for extra commercial consideration. So related party is not an easy thing to prove for the revenue under any circumstances. And this is a virtually very latest ruling of Supreme Court. Similarly, on subsidy linked to price, I think there I thought we had such a big author, he should have clarified. Linked to price means supposing I purchased the car at 10 lakh rupees. Now, because of COVID, he says the car is to be sold at 9 rupees, 1 lakh rupees, I'll give you discount. When we talk of subsidy in this sense, this 1 lakh rupees is a subsidy given by the supplier to the distributor. Therefore, the revenue can tax at 10 lakh rupees. That is the meaning of directly linked to price. There are two kinds of subsidy we talk.
But this has been already overruled by the circular. This clarification has been given by the circular, and that circular has already been overruled.
What overruled by whom?
Overruled by the CBSE, another circular 112. The example of Honda car I have already taken in my presentation.
Yes, okay. It's okay. I have not gone through circulars, I'm discussing law. I will follow your book and take this circular. Similarly, this free supply is a very big issue. Now, what is a free supply? It's not defined. We know Schedule 1 and blah, 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 it's okay. Now, supposing I'm able to prove there are no free supply, there were discounts or sales promotion schemes or marketing expenses. How can revenue deny me? I cannot exclude them. Here also, we have a Supreme Court ruling, again under excise, but on kind of similar facts. Commissioner Excise versus HLL, 142 ELT 513, where they say that free supplies cannot be straight away taken out for taxation because they are without consideration. They said if the dealer is able to prove that free supplies are in the nature of discounts or sales promotion or marketing expenses or any other kind of tool, then they can be included in the post-sale discount. This is another issue we should explore as so-called GST experts. We should do a little more work on this. I have done little bit work, but not much. Now, liquidity damages. Now, liquidity damages is a part of your contract, infra contracts. Now, supposing what is awarded by arbitrator is not liquidity damages. He awarding me the financial compensation for the loss of my capital. Will this be liquidity damages? No. Rakesh Garg had sent me a Bombay High Court ruling. I'm forgetting the name. Rakesh, you should remember? Just share it. In which they distinguished for GST purposes the liquidity damage and the financial compensation. Therefore, again, when we talk as professionals, liquidity damages cannot straight away be taxed. First, it has to be a part of contract, number one. And but if contract also says if he has suffered in terms of cost, and also we have to seek under what circumstances the contract was repudiated or terminated. That's also very, very important to know.
Sir, I have just ignited the issue that there is an issue in that. I have not given any conclusion to that.
No, Sachin, we are discussing a law point. I'm not discussing your presentation at all. It's so very well done. We are not discussing your presentation. We are discussing the legal options.
Yeah.
As a lawyer, I don't take the circular of any value. We don't bother at all. Any circular which is contrary to law and Supreme Court judgment has absolutely no binding.
Chitreji, actually certain Q&A is still open. Can we go for the Q&A and discuss this?
Yes,
नहीं अभी Q&A नहीं
We only have a 10 minutes, sir.
Sir, Manpreet ji, Q&A ko we will take care of. There are important issues. Sushil ji is discussing. There are other also. We are discussing those.
Okay, sir.
Then the sole agent. I think this was a question which Mr. Gupta has raised. It's a beautiful question. But sole agent has a meaning. So it is not defined. Under Contract Act, Section 182 defines who is an agent. Section 2, subsection 5 of GST, we also have defined agent. Sole agent is who is under contractual given right to sell the entire goods of the supplier. If he says that the price should be this and not this, he can influence the price. The related party concept is only where one party is able to influence the decisions or price of the price decision of the supplier. Sole agent definitely is a huge factor, though in our country, sole agents are no longer valid. People don't appoint any longer sole agents. Similarly, on time of supply, I thought we should have spent little more time. There are a lot of issues I'm not going to take up. Time of supply is more relevant because it not only affects Section 15, but also the time you have to pay tax upon. That's very important. And I tell you, it's going to be a lot of litigation on Section 1213 because a lot of people are not paying tax as per law at all. They're taking their own time, especially for infra contracts. If there is a contract that I will raise and invoice after 6 months, then Section 1213 has no value because the rules is provided for where there's a commercial contract be says when will the invoice be raised, that will be time of supply, not Section 12 and 13. So these are the topics where I think we should have had one session, one day. If you really, we want to learn these topics from experts like Chitresh, Sandeep, Rakesh, they are experts on these lines. I am not. But just Section 15, I also know a little bit. So these things require more time, friends, and we need to study. What I'll do, I'll make a small PPT on these issues and give it to Manmohan by tomorrow evening. Any 6-7 slides, just for discussion among panelists, that what is the scope of the discussion we had on Section 15 today. Now the rules are rules. Rules cannot override the act. If I come in any of the main section of subsection 15.1 or machinery provision from 52 to 55, 15.5, rules are irrelevant. Rules come when I cannot come in Section 15. And I can come in Section 15 for the simple reason it is so loosely drafted. A price is not defined, this is shocking. The price word is not defined in the act. And we can say Section 2, subsection 31, consideration. But consideration is not price. Consideration includes, it's an inclusive definition. Therefore, we need to do little more work as students of law, and I will put up this PPT for discussion whenever Manmohan does the next series.
Definitely, sir. Yes, sir. Definitely. Thank you very much, Sushil ji. Thank you, Chitresh ji. From my side also, liquidated damages is not a present issue. It is a issue of excise time also. And there are many rulings in excise, and the provision is same taken from the excise law. There are many rulings in the excise that liquidation damages are to be reduced from the transaction value, and transaction value has to be seen after making liquidated damages. But with due humble respect to the AAR and AAR, where they have said that the liquidated damages are the separate supply, each case has to be seen.
Absolutely.
In where and in what applications the agreements were drafted, whether there was any scope of revision of the transaction value by way of liquidated damages. Similarly, another issue of
Manmohan ji, I have an issue.
Yeah, Vineet ji, please come up.
First of all, I must say that I really appreciate the presentation which was made by both the presenters today, Prachi and Chitresh. You both did a fabulous job. I really liked the presentation of both of you. Chitresh ji, one small issue which I wanted to point out was when you said that since the credit is now available to the buyer in cases of credit notes, therefore this issue is no longer required because it becomes revenue neutral. But let me tell you, that is the point where actually the trouble starts. मैं एग्जांपल देता हूँ कैसे होता है, स्पेशली मैं आपको लाइव एग्जांपल देता हूँ प्लास्टिक दाने के केसेस में. प्लास्टिक दाने में क्या होता है कि मेरे को साल के फाइनेंशियल ईयर के स्टार्ट में ही ये डिसाइड हो जाता है कि अगर मैं एक क्वांटिटी उठाऊंगा रिलायंस से या गेल से या ओएनजीसी से, तो मुझे एक पर्टिकुलर डिस्काउंट मिलेगा. अब क्योंकि मुझे पता होता है कि ये डिस्काउंट मुझे मिलने वाला है, तो जो मैं परचेज कर रहा हूँ 100 रुपए का, वो प्रोडक्ट्स में 96, 97 में सेल करना शुरू कर देता हूँ, क्योंकि मुझे पता होता है कि एट द एंड ऑफ द डे आई विल बी, एंड दैट प्राइस इज नॉट इन माय कंट्रोल, इट इज गवर्न्ड बाय मार्केट फोर्सेस। तो मैं उसको अपने 95, 97 में सेल करता रहता हूँ, उसकी वजह से मेरा क्रेडिट एक्यूमुलेट होता रहता है। अब बाद में जब कंपनी मुझे क्रेडिट नोट इश्यू करती है, अगर वो एक फाइनेंशियल क्रेडिट नोट होता है, तो वो जो क्रेडिट मेरा एक्यूमुलेट हो गया वो मेरी कॉस्ट बन जाता है, बिकॉज देयर इज नो वे आई कैन सीक अ रिफंड ऑफ दैट एक्यूमुलेटेड क्रेडिट।
Correct.
So that becomes a challenging issue. So that is actually the starting point. This circular was not the end of the solution. This circular was the start of the problem.
नहीं,
That is all I wanted to point out.
नहीं, very well, sir, very well appreciated your point. But what I was talking about is legally. यानी कि what case you have taken, you are perfectly right. If this is the situation, then we should not be getting into the financial credit note. But this situation may not be there in every case. This is very specific case which you have picked up. So what I am saying as a general.
Yes, right. I agree with you. Ki wherever if a financial credit note is not making any impact,
Yes.
then I agree with you. It should not make any problem. But if it is making an impact,
Yes,
like in electronics industry,
that needs to be analyzed on case-to-case basis. You are right.
Yeah.
Right.
Sir, my view on this financial credit note is any credit note so far as the GST relaxation or no relaxation. Financial credit note which is having no effect on 180 days reversal would only be the case where you could have issued a GST credit note, but you have chosen to issue financial credit note. मतलब आप GST का रिवर्सल, GST लाइबिलिटी का रिवर्सल कर सकते थे, आउटपुट लाइबिलिटी का, विद ए कंडीशन की इनपुट टैक्स क्रेडिट का भी रिवर्सल करे रिसिपिएंट, बट आपने, और वो सारी कंडीशंस आपकी डिस्काउंट्स की मीट हो रही हैं कि आप डिस्काउंट्स दे सकते थे वैलिड, तब आप जीएसटी क्रेडिट नोट इशू कर सकते थे, बट आपने चूज किया फाइनेंशियल क्रेडिट नोट इशू करने का, देन ओनली फाइनेंशियल क्रेडिट नोट वुड बी वैलिड। लेकिन अदर सर्कमस्टांसिस में फाइनेंशियल क्रेडिट नोट इशू किया जाएगा, देन इट विल बिकम अंडर द लेंस ऑफ 180 days, or it may be treated as incentive from the supplier to the recipient, और एक इंसेंटिव को सेपरेट सेल्स प्रमोशन इंसेंटिव के तौर पे सेपरेट सप्लाई की बात होगी। विड्रॉवल ऑफ द सर्कुलर से एक बड़ी कंट्रोवर्सी रेज हो गई है, अगर विड्रॉवल नहीं होता तब भी हम इसको बेनिफिशियरी क्लैरिफिकेशन मान करके हम इसके ऊपर आगे बढ़ सकते थे, बट ये पॉइंट इसके ऊपर अभी बड़ी डिबेट की चर्चा है, क्योंकि फाइनेंशियल क्रेडिट नोट से अगर हम 180 डेज की लिमिटेशंस को, जो सब्सटेंटिव प्रोविजन ऑफ लॉ है, अगर उसको हम हटाने की, डन अवे करने की कोशिश करेंगे, तो बहुत सारे कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स में फाइनेंशियल क्रेडिट नोट्स इसी तरीके से मिसयूज होंगे। प्लीज
सर मैं इसमें 2 पॉइंट बोलना चाहूंगा।
हाँ जी,
ये जो फाइनेंशियल क्रेडिट नोट की बात है, ये 2 सर्कुलर में करी गई है। 105 इज ओनली 1 सर्कुलर, जो अर्लियर सर्कुलर है that has not been withdrawn till date, so that circular is still valid, first thing।
हाँ, बट उस सर्कुलर की लैंग्वेज में आपको देखिएगा, उन्होंने कहा है फाइनेंशियल क्रेडिट, जो अर्लियर सर्कुलर है उन्होंने उसमें कहा है फाइनेंशियल क्रेडिट नोट इशू करते हैं तो उनको अपना जीएसटी लायबिलिटी रिड्यूस करने की जरूरत नहीं है। उन्होंने कहीं भी उसमें ये नहीं कहा कि उसको रिसिपिएंट को आईटीसी रिड्यूस करने की जरूरत नहीं है।
I'll check out, but this is a clear understanding, I think।
Yes, नहीं,
उसमें सर उसमें कहीं पे ये मेंशन नहीं किया हुआ है कि if the recipient has reversed the ITC then I will not be affected। वो वहाँ पे वो एक कंडीशन पे जाके छोड़ दिया था कि उसने कहा कि it will be considered as financial credit note, that's it।
Yes, that's all। उसमें ये कहा कि उसको रिड्यूस करने की जरूरत नहीं है, तो that is one call। दूसरा जो हम बात
1 minute मोहन जी only।
ओके, सो आई थिंक नाउ इट इज वेरी गुड। अब तो 1 मिनट में तो और क्या डिस्कशंस होंगे।
इसी में मनमोहन जी एक लास्ट चीज मैं ऐड करता हूँ, जो चित्रेश जी ने भी पॉइंट आउट करी थी कि इसी कॉन्टेक्स्ट में, क्योंकि जब ये इशू उठ रहा था कि एक से ज्यादा इनवॉइसेस के अगेंस्ट क्रेडिट नोट इनवॉइस बेस पे लिंक्ड था, तो उन्होंने सेक्शन 34 में अमेंडमेंट करी और उन्होंने कहा कि नहीं, फॉर इवन फॉर मोर देन 1 इनवॉइसेस यू कैन रेज अ सिंगल क्रेडिट नोट। तो इंटेंशन यही थी कि आप बहुत सारे आप क्वेश्चन, लेकिन इशू ये उठ गया कि अब आपने यहाँ क्रेडिट नोट लॉ में तो प्रोवाइड कर दिया, लेकिन आपने बाय वे ऑफ सर्कुलर कह दिया कि इट कैन जस्ट बी अ फाइनेंशियल क्रेडिट नोट।
या बट सर एक मैं इसमें यहाँ पर आपको प्लेस करना चाहूंगा, साउदर्न मोटर सुप्रीम कोर्ट का केस है और उन्होंने ये कहा है बड़ा क्लियरली साउदर्न मोटर सुप्रीम कोर्ट के केस में कि इवन इफ आपका प्री डिफाइंड नहीं है, इवन इफ आपके एग्रीमेंट से सपोर्टेड नहीं है, इवन देन सर्कमस्टांशियल एंड कंटेम्परेरी सिचुएशंस के बेस के ऊपर जो भी डिस्काउंट सप्लायर देता है दैट वुड बी रिड्यूस्ड फ्रॉम द ट्रांजेक्शन वैल्यू, बट उसका कंटेम्परेनियस प्रूफ हमारे को देखना पड़ेगा। तो इवन इफ, और वो पूरा एक्साइज लॉज में ही था पिछले,
दिस वाज बेस्ड ऑन डेफिनेशन ऑफ ए सेल प्राइस under section 2M Central Sales Tax Act.
Yes, sir.
Here these buggers have not given any definition.
So
but
बट फिर भी उसकी जो लैंग्वेज है वो सेम सर्कमस्टांसिस को पूरा बड़ा एलोबरेटली वो डिफाइन करती है और सारे सर्कमस्टांसिस को डिफाइन करके वो बड़ा ब्यूटीफुल जजमेंट है। विल शेयर विद द पार्टिसिपेंट्स आल्सो लेटर ऑन।
Manoj, we can flag
So
this.
yes,
Yes, please.
so with this I thanks everyone for being joining today, and it was an interactive session. Tomorrow we have input tax credit to be taken up by Advocate Shri P.K. Mittal ji, and day by day all the topics are very interesting and important. I ask all the participants to be there. Thanks participants also, and thanks everyone. और अपने inputs देते रहिए। मैं request करूंगा young leaders से कि वो question and answer मनप्रीत जी से सारे ले लें और उनको प्लीज ड्राफ्ट करने की और सेग्रीगेट करने की कोशिश करें और कुछ आंसर्स ड्राफ्ट करने की कोशिश करें, जिससे जैसा कि एडवाइस किया गया है एट द एंड ऑफ द वर्कशॉप सारे क्वेश्चंस को हम विद प्रॉपर आंसर्स डेलीगेट को एक हैंडबुक के तौर पर प्रेजेंट कर सकेंगे विद ऑल द पीपीटीज एंड विद ऑल द वीडियोस। थैंक यू वेरी मच। एंड वी आर, क्योंकि अभी लग रहा है कि लॉकडाउन पीरियड बढ़ेगा, डेफिनेटली विद द गाइडेंस ऑफ ऑल द पैनलिस्ट वी विल ट्राई टू हैव वन एडवांस एंड क्रिटिकल इश्यूज वर्कशॉप। सो उसके लिए भी अपने जो टॉपिक्स हमें रखने चाहिए उसके भी सजेशंस दीजिए। थैंक यू वेरी मच ऑल। हैव ए गुड टाइम।
थैंक यू सर। थैंक यू।
Thank you. Have a good day.
थैंक यू सर।
Thank you. Have a good day, sir.
गुड डे सर।
Thanks,
सेम टू यू
everyone.
सर।